love turning wooden bowls on a wooden lathe, a lathe made for wood turning.
Yeah.
And you can turn different things on a wooden lathe. You can turn spindles like balusters on a chair, on a stairwell, or chair backs, anything that's round that has to be fabricated with cutting tools like spindle gouges, bowl gouges, and other cutting instruments designed to work on wood lathes. But I enjoy making bowls. They're functional, they're everyday life.
Do you sell these things?
That's what I was going to get to you about.
Sorry.
When we talked about the demographic of 61% of your Spotify viewers are women,
Yeah.
I did some research on what would my market be? Who would be buying these if I were to try to sell them online? The biggest market in the world, right? I mean, the biggest market for a small person to reach is not your local town, but the world through the internet. And so I started researching who has the largest amount of discretionary spending money on hand.
Yeah.
Women between 35 and 60 right now in our country by far have the largest amount of discretionary spending funds. So if they like something they see, they go get it. And so therefore, when you start thinking about, well, what type of bowls should you spend your time making? Then you need to research, well, what do they like? Do they like the very finely crafted, thin-walled mahogany bowls? Do they like exotic woods? Do they like, and then come to find out, it's all across the scale from one end to the other, from a rough oiled oak bowl to a finely finished urethane or lacquer finished mahogany bowl, something like that. Oh,
well, because I've seen it like when I go to like farmers markets and stuff, people will have their little setup and you can buy those. But I've never seen how they've been made. I've never had it, but the way that you explained it, I'm kind of interested. My dad is a woodworking nutcase, right? Every single year for Christmas, he builds something for like me and my brother. So like he always uses wood. He did cornhole tables for us one year. So I got the whole cornhole set up. So he did it like regulation length. And then this year he did dartboards for us. So he built out a whole case. And so he's big into woodworking or whatever. But though, that back when you were growing up and you were in high school, you had a class.
We had wood shop, metal shop.
Man, dude, they took it away. My mom, she works over at Rising Leaders. She's a teacher there. And so we recently had Tim Minnick on, and he's the Bay County captain. And so he dresses up like Captain America, and he goes to these events where children are going through cancer issues and things of that nature. And so he does this, but I found out that he's actually the shop teacher over there. I was like, Mom, they have a shop class? And she's like, yeah, they have a shop class. Power tools, freaking woodworking and all that. I'm like, dude, they're bringing it back. It's making a comeback.
Mike Rowe has explained many, many times.
I love that dude.
Yeah, and he's explained many times what the numbers are, and they're pretty staggering for the professions that we have out there, both craftsmen and trade, that are leaving versus coming in. It's a scary number. I think for about every 7 that are leaving, 3 are coming in. It's a terrible ratio. And he explains how for those that do not necessarily enjoy the academia part of a higher education, there are many ways to get a higher education, many ways to be successful financially for yourself and your family. They don't always rely on getting a secular education. You can get a craft or vocation. And he explains these numbers. Let's say you go into welding. Within a year and a half, 2 years, not even that long, but the school, the field training, and then the placement on the job, less than a year and a half to 2 years, you're done with everything. You're almost paid off with your Votech school and training, and you will start your life and savings within 2 years. Others will go 4, 6, and 8 years. Take 4, 6, or 8 years to get into the groove. They're still not paid for their education loans, and they spend a great deal of time paying the interest and suffering under that financial debt. Where the other who chose the vocational route, in the long run, being money wise, will be better off than someone who spends that time on a secular education.
Yeah.
And Mike Rowe has the stats. I don't, but I've watched several of his podcasts. It's all truthful, logical, makes sense, And I do all I can to tell
Does
young
he still
people.
have that show, Dirty Jobs?
No, I don't think so. I think it ended, but
Yeah.
he did start doing podcasts.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and I watched a few of these that he did, and I don't know if it's the same one all the time. He might go on different shows. I think the one that I watched where he talks about this particular situation was not one of his shows, but one that he appeared on, and he gave the stats, and it was shocking.
Yeah, man. Cool. So let's jump into why you're here, being a candidate for Ward 1.
Ward 1.
Ward 1.
Panama City Commission Ward 1.
So, man, kind of run me through it. What made you want to run? I mean, I'm going to ask a couple of generic questions. I call them generic because that's what everybody asks. And I've already notified you before this started, man, you got all the time in the world. So I don't have a timer up here. You know, you can talk about whatever and don't leave anything out, man. Tell the community, because we have a good following base. Just let us know what it was that kind of got you in there.
So I'll start in recent times, and then I'll go back and give a history of me and where I came from
Okay,
and how I ended up
absolutely.
here. But at recent times, it started with a conversation that I would have regularly with someone where my wife works, and we would discuss a national level topic or a state or a county or a city level topic. And in those discussions with this man, we were like-minded on many issues. So you see someone you recognize, their friend, you discuss these different issues. At the parallel time that I was having those discussions with him, I lived 2 blocks off Beach Drive, and we've lived in that home for 24 years. My wife grew up 1 street north of that street where we live now. Literally, our backyards connect to the house she grew up in, and she's lived there her whole life. So we're very familiar with Beach Drive. We're very familiar with the bay, walking down to the bay, picnics on the bay, spend the entire day down at the bay, 4th of July at the bay, at the end of our street where it runs into Beach Drive. In that entire time, plus the entire time of all her siblings and cousins that grew up there, never once have I heard one single story about anybody running somebody off of Beach Drive or running them off the beach or saying, that's my property, get off. It was always, it appeared as though no one owned that property. That was the property of the state or the property of a government entity. It was so natural, left alone, with no structures on it, and no one running down there telling you, get off there, that's my beach, that you would have the impression by being on Beach Drive that was just state-owned land or something. Well, come to find out, it's not. Every home on Beach Drive, in the beginning, when they were deeded the property north of Beach Drive, they were also deeded the property south of Beach Drive. So their north and south property boundary lines ran all the way to the high water mark of the bay, like any riparian right or waterfront property does. Over time, if it stayed in the same family and that same deed stayed on record, you know, that was very evident and clear when you look at the deeds of the property on Beach Drive. If it changed hands numerous times, sometimes that piece of property would be left off, and some of the homes do struggle with that now. Not the majority, but some of them do struggle with it. When the developer built Beach Drive, the community there, the ends of the roads were retained with the developer. So let's say you have Fairland Road, runs down to Beach Drive and it dead ends. Well, there's property owners on both sides. East and west of Fairland are property owners in Beach Drive. And with the setback from the road, their property line runs all the way down to the water. But where the end of the road is, where it tees off to Beach Drive, the developer never released that property to anyone. He could have written into the deed where property owner A and property owner B, when you get on the south side of 98, they run towards each other. There's a midpoint, and there's a line that runs down to the bay, and they have a little extra piece at the end of the road. But he did not do that. He retained it under his own property. The builder never released it to anyone. Over time, that too was lost in time. And basically now the city of Panama City claims the end of each road as city property. I do not believe, with anything that I have read, that they would be able to produce to anyone a legal document stating said fact, but that's what they claim and believe at this point now. But those who live on Beach Drive have researched the fact that there's no transfer of property that's ever occurred. They just claim it as such. So it's never been fought, never been discussed until obviously now when comes along this proposal for a path along Beach Drive. The distance from the concrete curb on the south side of Beach Drive, off of that, there's a little bit of a right-of-way that is owned by the state of Florida. So it's a state
33
road.
feet, 33 feet.
Well, from the center of the road, one direction,
Yeah.
and center of the road, the other direction, or north and south, total of 66 feet, or maybe
No, I think you're right.
yeah, I believe that's right. So basically, the curb is not all the way to that distance. It's about 3 feet shy of that distance, give or take, if you look at a drawing.
We, I've seen the survey drawings. Who sent it to me? I think Alan Branch sent me the survey drawings to begin with, and I know that like there's actually some areas of Beach Drive where I think the right of way goes up to people's like doorstep, literally on the north side of Beach Drive.
To their home doorstep.
Yeah, like I can get you those surveys.
I
too.
think there are a couple of homes that are right down.
Yeah, there's only a couple.
There's
but
one by Lake Caroline that sits right up on the
Oh,
sidewalk.
yeah.
Yeah, I know that home there. Yeah.
Yeah, but so I
it's-
mean, yeah,
Okay, so the proposal is that if we take all the way to the right of way on the south side of the road, so a little further than the curb is now, if we take that
Yeah.
and start at that line and come north 12 feet, that's our path. And then what is left over, which would diminish both lanes by 3 feet or 6 feet total, if it diminishes that, then you get these narrower lanes than we have now.
Yeah.
If the northern curb is not moved further north.
yeah.
So that makes the lanes extremely narrow.
Let me hit on that real quick. So there was a Tommy Ham and we ran against each other back in the county election. And I brought up since then, I've had several conversations with him. And he told me about the DOT had actually done a study because that fuel depot that's right there at the end of Beach Drive, going into the downtown Panama City, the way that those fuel trucks, do you know what I'm about to say? They go up and then they go up Jinx. And then when they come around, they come down Beach Drive. It's already kind of hard for them to come down that road. Now you're talking about narrowing it. Semis coming down that road, they're going to have to find an alternative route because it's just not going to work. But I feel like, and Brian Granger, when I had him on, we had this conversation and he knows how I feel about it. And when he listens to this, he's going to roll his eyes. But it's the whole thing of like, I'm against downtown, what they've done with that. But my dad, we just went downtown the other night with my parents. They normally, my parents don't really frequent downtown areas. And so, but we went down there and, my dad drives a Ram 1500 truck and freaking people don't know how to parallel park to begin with. So then there's cars that are almost in the middle of the freaking road. If you have two cars that are coming down there, and I'm talking about, now I heard it's going to be better on the north side of Harrison Avenue. Once you get past the roundabout, right? They're not going to make it as narrow right there, but down there, dude, and maybe I just don't know about it, but I'm surprised there hasn't been major issues with it so far. But anyway, getting back on the Beach Drive thing, if the plan is to make it just as narrow as that bullshit, and then you want to sit there because, again, like I feel like it's going to be kind of a safety issue.
You've hit on all cylinders as far as the width of the road. If you have a fire truck coming one way, going to one call, and this is not something that's made up. This legitimately happens all the time in emergency response personnel. You have a fire truck going one direction and an ambulance going the other. Say a fire truck's responding to a gas spill at a car crash somewhere, and he's going west, but you got a heart attack victim down on Beach Drive, and then ambulance is going east.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. The commission is not, they don't shy away from it whenever you ask them the question, because they say, well, it's supposed to slow traffic down. The narrower you make a road, because it's still going to be, now on in their defense, it still is going to be DOT regular. It's going to be the right length. It's not going to be out of regs, but it's going to be thin enough to, well, we want to slow down traffic. And I'm like, why would you want to slow down traffic on Beach Drive?
Well, let's interject this. There are a minimum of 12,000 cars a day that currently use that east-west artery in that part of the city. There's 11th Street, that's a major artery north of that, and 15th Street, that's a...
And what was the number that you just said? There
12,000 minimum cars travel Beach Drive daily.
Where did you get that number?
The DOT did a
study.
study.
Okay. I was like, who did a study on that?
The Florida
DOT?
Department of Transportation.
Okay.
It's online. You can pull that up.
Okay. Yeah.
If this goes through,
Yeah.
first of all, if this was going to happen, from my experience in government, the Florida Department of Transportation would have already acted upon this. It's my belief that the reason we have heard nothing from the Florida Department of Transportation is because they're probably, in my opinion, trying to give those who are so adamant about it an opportunity, and I think they may have taken the opportunity with the referendum, to be able to maybe save a little face and back out of this with some grace, because they put the cart before the horse. We spent about $800,000 plus with Panhandle Engineering for the plans. We spent about $200,000 with the city attorney. So about 1.1 million, somewhere in there. I'd like to state during our time together today, I'm going to give you numbers that are the best of my understanding. If there's a mistake, it's an honest mistake. These are numbers that
There's no doubt in my mind that you are giving me false numbers to make something look like it's not. But hey, we're all human. And by the way, the internet is not always the most accurate, and you can find different numbers in different places.
You can do that on the census.
Exactly.
There's private census people that give different numbers for the per household income in Panama City, but the U.S. Census gives a lower one.
Roger.
But back to the Florida Department of Transportation. They are an extremely professional, extremely educated, incredibly gifted with traffic study personnel and engineers. This is a science. Traffic is a science. They understand school zones and churches and residential areas and businesses, and they understand how traffic flow works. Our city is not shrinking. Our city is growing. That is a major artery. Yes, it's beautiful, and it's beautiful because it's been left alone. It's very natural. There have been complaints about, well, the particular plant life that's down there. Well, that particular plant life survives salt, wind, flood, being trampled upon. It is exactly what needs to be growing there for very obvious reasons. Natural selection has placed those plants there because they hold up. It may not be the most beautiful, and it may not be elephant grass, and it may not be ornate, but it's exactly what we need there to keep the erosion from occurring and destroying the road and the beach and property. But back to the congestion and narrowing the road. It, as you pointed out, downtown Harrison Avenue, I also do not think they'll be that narrow, but they will be very much more narrow than they are now. Yeah. So as you said, two large trucks, which are, hey, we're America. It's our legal right to drive an F-350 if it's part of our business, or if you just want one and you've done well enough in your life to go get that, that's good on you. That is the American dream and way. And I make no anything for anybody that has the ability to go and do that, especially if it's part of their livelihood, you know? And if you have two of those coming down Beach Drive, post this construction, good luck with your mirrors, or if you're not paying attention and you're distracted or whatever. There's so many facets about the Beach Drive path and the just common sense facts that just cannot be ignored. Okay, so we talked about the width of it. Okay, so the sidewalk's going to be 12 feet wide for pedestrians and electrified things like scooters and golf carts and whatever, but a travel lane for vehicles is going to be 10 feet wide. All right, so that first off is You have a main artery in town that many people use. 12,000 vehicles a day use that as their way to avoid the school zones and slow zones and traffic lights on 11th Street and 15th Street. If you're making a journey, let's say, I don't know why, but say somebody lives over on the east side of Panama City, maybe into this little Springfield area there, and they work at the Navy base. Their path is not up to 11th Street or 15th Street to get out over the bridge. Their path is through downtown, grab Beach Drive, go for a nice, beautiful ride to work with no traffic lights, no school zones, et cetera, and cut their travel time way down. And on the way home, or let's say you live on the beach, but you work at Tyndall. Everybody knows during rush hour, 11th and 15th Street are just, very congested. And so there's this beautiful road to take with no traffic lights and no school zones up Beach Drive, and you go right through downtown. It cuts your travel time down there. I'm sure there's people that can argue that, and traffic studies that can argue, but the reason we have a count from the FDOT of 12,000 vehicles a day is not people going to the Tom Thumb or running downtown to pay their water bill. These people are traversing the city. They live on one end and work on the other, and they have to traverse east to west, and that's why we have the count we have. So that's one aspect. That's one. Let's talk about the numbers for cost. Okay. Well, the DOT has a documented fact that they, about 2 years ago, $6.5 million to scrape and repave Beach Drive. Now, it did run a little further downtown beyond SC Road that you mentioned earlier, the Chevron fuel station there. Fuel comes into our town through barges, and then it is pumped into those large tanks down there. And then, of course, the semi-fuel dispensers pull in there and they load their fuel, and it's a wonderful place.
To it again.
It's a wonderful place to have that here. If you noticed, it's nice to have that in our town.
Yeah.
They do an excellent job of meeting all the risk management for spills and so forth. If you've noticed all the gravel berms that underneath them have membranes, this is a very well regulated industry. The gas and oil industry, we are very well protected there. If you look at that place, it is kept in an immaculate order from the grass to the vehicles to the grounds. And that's for a reason. They take pride, and they've been here since, I don't know the date, but they've been here way longer than a lot of people who live here now. Yeah. That company and that system of delivering fuel to our area. And they deliver fuel. I don't know the distance, but they deliver fuel a long way from here. It is an artery for fuel. It's needed by not only our community, but by surrounding communities as well. So we'll go to the cost. $6.5 million to pave from, I think it was around Harrison Avenue, down 6th Street, Business 98, State Road, along Beach Drive, and it turned up. It went further than the where the landmark apartments are, where the 90-degree is. So it did go further that way, but it was $6.5 million to repave it. Now, when you repave the road, you don't tear it up; you scratch it. You've seen the grinders, the road grinders that go along, and these particular contractors for the FDOT did it right. So I'm saying they did it right. And it was $6.5 million. Okay, now we've been given a number of $8 million to do the following. Okay. We had to remove the southern curb. It's got to be removed, taken out. It's got to be moved over several feet. Well, when you do that, you don't just simply cut a line in the current asphalt and bump the curb up against that. That's not how that works. Engineering-wise, there's got to be a system of support and grade changes that occur underneath there so that can occur. So you're going to tear up a lot more road than just where the curb is going to end up. It's very expensive to do that. Subgrade, pour. There's underground utilities that are going to go in. There's sprinkler heads. There's lighting. There's a potential for hardening our power supply down along Beach Drive and put that underground. I am telling you for the record today, with my limited experience of about 30 years in the building industry as a certified building contractor, as an airframe and power plant mechanic with the Federal Aviation Administration, I'm telling you cost-wise, it is not possible, mark my words down, to do everything that is on Panhandle Engineering's plans for $8 million. Not possible. I'll take any challenge, discuss anyone. I'm certain that the city's been informed through Panhandle Engineering on a cost for this project. It is much closer to $20 to $24 million to do this project, not $8 million. It will not be ever done for that amount of money if it gets approved by some chance. I thoroughly believe it won't be done at this point because I believe that if the Department of Transportation had a mind to do so, the communication would have already occurred by now.
So what you're saying is that it's going to end up costing us more money in the long run.
Now, where's that money going to come from? Because in the beginning,
how much did we get? So the state appropriation that we got was it for 17 million? Why is 17 million
for the Beach
in my
Drive
head?
Path project?
How much was it?
So in the beginning, I personally spoke with someone who was integrally involved in it in the beginning, 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know how many years ago it was, but many years ago, George Gaynor.
Oh, yeah.
Sat on all of this in the beginning. I have had a personal one-on-one conversation with him and asked him point blank, tell me about the beginning of this. What is the genesis? And his words are this: that money was supposed to be for sidewalks in general throughout Panama City.
Well, so I think that's the disconnect right now, right? Because, I watch several other shows, I follow several other pages and things of that nature. So I think the confusion right now is the difference between a grant and a state appropriation. State appropriation is made specifically for a project, which means you can't reallocate those funds. A grant, the funds can be reallocated. Sound right?
It does.
Okay, cool. So this money is specifically for that path. You can't take the money and put it into anything else.
And where is the documentation on the facts you just gave? I'd like to read it. I've never read that. Yeah.
We can look it up real quick.
And does it provide for a cost overrun?
Yeah.
Yes, it does, or you're going to read it.
Just give me 1 second because I want to make sure that I'm
okay
right about what I just said. But actually, you could just fact check state appropriation.
And whether or not that's the verbiage for the genesis of this project.
Well, so that's something I had seen. They brought up the non-referendum. And in the non-referendum...
You mean the
non-binding referendum. That's non-binding.
Well, that's a good term, though, non-referendum.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
No.
Non-binding.
But if you think about it, it's a non-referendum. Why on earth would you go to the trouble of putting forth a referendum that you want to take the weight off of you as a commission and give it to the people, but then tell them, by the way, kind of like the airport property, by the way, we won't be bound by whatever the popular vote is on that. But regardless of that, whether it is or isn't transferable, the reality is it cannot be done for that. So where's the supplemental funds going to come from? So we could talk about our city's finances at this point.
I just gave him the budget. That's what I sent to him instead of the beach drive thing.
Well, a budget is one thing, but the ability to follow the budget with what you've considered you're going to contribute to each little column in the budget is a whole nother matter.
Roger.
Depends on how much money you have to do that. And currently, our city clerk treasurer, Jan Smith, who, if you would like to say things like doesn't have a dog in the fight metaphor, it would be her. Mm-hmm. Not born and raised here, not from here, was hired here by the city because of her skill set and her resume, and hasn't been here very many years, and is...
Pull this one just out just a little bit, so then you're talking into the mic because you were talking over it. There you go. Sorry.
She states at more than one commission meeting, we are in trouble. We as the city of Panama City are in trouble. Terms like non-accounting terms like broke or not broke are thrown around, and certain commissioners don't like that word being used. And so she tries to make it clear that if we continue going down the road we're going, you won't need me here much longer because my job is to manage your money, and you're not going to have any if things don't change. And there's two things that have to change in any financial situation: cut down on the outgo or increase the income.
Roger. No.
Well, increasing income falls on the shoulders of whom? If the city needs more money, where are they going to get that from? Well, I mean, we're kind of, it appears that we're very dependent on grants. I am so incredibly
Well, that was something that I thought was interesting that you said the other night at the forum, and
I'd like to elaborate on that right now.
I agree with you 100% when you said, quit saying free money. This is not free money. This is still taxpayers' dollars.
It already came out of your wallet.
Yeah, exactly. And I get irritated with that term a lot because it's thrown around.
It's not true. It's not the truth.
It's not free
and
money.
There are commissioners who have said.
But I think so. The way that wording means everything when you're explaining something. So I think the way that it should be approached is, this money is going to be utilized in another city, whether or not we take it or not. So we might as well get the money before somebody else does.
Let me elaborate on that sentence, because
Okay.
that's you just said exactly the prong I want to make here. And it is this: if everyone everywhere shares that attitude, do you think our overall expense in government taxes will ever go down?
Probably not.
No, the answer is no. If everyone everywhere is fiscally responsible and realizes where this grant money's come from, which is their own pocket, and they'd like to keep more of that, then we'd like to say, hey, let's have every government entity, whether it be a city, municipality, a county, or state, a division of the federal government, let's have everybody be accountable, treat it like the widow's mite, which, if there's you or anyone else that doesn't understand that particular example of how precious money is, I'll elaborate on that in a moment. And let's take care of things with our own fundage and not rely on fundage from others. And I've got several examples of how I can explain how grant money is very dangerous.
Before you do, back on that, whenever someone says that about the money, I've talked to several people. In fact, there is a woman who lives really close to Beach Drive, and I was just on the phone with her the other night because she watched one of my podcasts, and she's got my number from when I ran for office, and so she called me and she was like, she gave me a piece of her mind about who I had on, and we talked about the Beach Drive thing, and she said, and I said, well, and I made the argument. Listen, I'm going to use that term, by the way. I don't have a dog in this fight because I don't live in Panama City, right? So I don't even vote in Panama City. I know, in a way, I still do. I have people on, and I don't want to put any false narratives out there, but I said, I gave her the argument about, well, if we didn't accept the money, and we gave it back to if we gave it back and we said, hey, we don't want this, we would pray that they would give us the money back to utilize somewhere else, and where it wasn't necessarily for the Beach Drive project, right? But they're not going to do that probably because there's not a history of doing that in a lot of places. But the thing is so I said, so I mean, what were we supposed to do? Just turn it down? And she went, yes. And I went, how honest? I mean, I get it. And so let me ask you this, because I'm a little bit, look, man, I'm not all knowing about this stuff. I don't know anything about it. Not really. So going back on it though, was there, how did they involve the community when making the decision to take the appropriation?
During COVID.
That tells me everything I need to know.
Okay. There were all these workshops that happened that people whom I know live on Beach Drive say, when? What? So that's what has explained to me, was that all this input for yes, yes, yes came during the COVID times when we were on lockdown, generally speaking, that we weren't really doing a lot of mingling with others because of what we had been advised to do by those in power. And therefore, that's when all this input came. Well, subsequent to that, now you have some other input, and you have I don't know the exact number once again, as I stated earlier. And I'm sure these numbers do change daily because more petitions are received, or, petitions against Beach Drive. And those who are keeping track of all things, it's well above 3,000 signatures. Now, these aren't signatures that you just receive online. You have a place online where you say, put your name in here or sign this, and we don't know who you are. These are people who have an address, they have a phone number. It's very clear and legible. They've been retained. They've been uttered to the city on numerous occasions. They've been uttered to the Florida Department of Transportation on numerous occasions. The impact of the traffic situation, the DOT already understands and knows if you kill that major artery, for example, if you're going to narrow the lanes, the speed limit's going to change. It's going to go lower. It's going to cause more congestion. There's going to be numerous pedestrian crosswalks added to Beach Drive. It is going to be no longer an artery. It's going to be a capillary. Okay, so the kind of flow that's going to be able to flow through Beach Drive will be nothing close to 12,000 vehicles a day. So now we're going to take those vehicles that would have gone down Beach Drive and we're going to place them on 11th Street and 15th Street. Now, you don't live there, but have you driven down 11th or 15th Street during the busy times of the day? Now, can you imagine putting, let's split the number, 6,000 more on 11th Street and 6,000 more on 15th Street. That is a lot of vehicular traffic onto an already, I would say, as a layman, it looks at capacity to me. When you have cars, when the light goes red on Frankfurt Avenue and you're heading east, and during the morning and the evening, those cars back up all the way almost to the curve where Beck Avenue comes in. That's a long way for traffic to be backed up. Now we're going to add 6,000 more cars during rush hour, morning and night. I believe in my limited.
Why are there going to be more cars?
Why? Because the cars that would have been going down Beach Drive won't be going down Beach Drive. They're gonna look at 5 or 6 more pedestrian crosswalks.
Yeah.
Narrow lanes and slower speed, and they be just by the nature of people seeking the path of least resistance for travel, they're probably going to migrate up to 11th Street and 15th Street.
So potentially higher.
I don't see how you could.
Yeah.
I don't see how anyone with a common sense approach to this would say, well, those same 12,000 vehicles using that Beach Drive now, because the aim and the point and the effort and the manipulation of this format is to get them off of Beach Drive.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to narrow the roads but the lanes by 3 feet apiece. You're going to put 6 more pedestrian crosswalks in, and you're going to lower the speed limit. Well, what do you think that will do to
Don't say that to me, not lowering the speed limit.
Well,
it's already like 35 through there, right?
And do you think with 10-foot lanes and a 12-foot pedestrian path that speed limit's going to stay the same? Do you really think that?
I already have a problem
Does
with traffic.
Does it make any sense for it to stay the same by minimizing the lane width and putting that much pedestrian traffic on the south side? And the only way to get to the south side is not going to be on a walk over.
Okay.
That's not in the plans. It's going to be on a walk across the road pedestrian crosswalk with the flashing light. And you know the Florida law, pedestrians right away, you stop. So now you're going to have 7 traffic lights basically along Beach Drive with narrower road and the speed limit reduced. The vehicles are going to migrate. And that would be the intent of a traffic engineer's job, is you force migration of vehicle traffic to the path of least resistance. It's just human nature. That's what's going to happen. So our traffic load of 12,000 vehicles is going to migrate to already congested roads. But if you leave it an artery, we're growing in population. I'm sure you're very aware of the number of beds that have increased since the hurricane 6 years ago, with the different locations of where we have apartment and townhouses added to the city. There's going to be a whole lot more vehicles on the road, plus traveling through town. Plus, we have an increase of personnel going to be coming in at Tyndall Air Force Base with the number of squadrons going in out there. They won't be living on base. They'll be living off base. They'll be, and it may not be in Panama City. It may be in Callaway and Springfield and Lynn Haven, but it is going to go up in our town as well. I won't say everyone there, but a portion of them will be moving into that area. All right, so we've covered the
I think we beat the, well,
We've covered several of the facets, but there are more facets about that. We could talk ecology. We can talk quality of life.
I did want to hit on that actually, the real quick, and then we don't have to, we keep talking about Beach Drive. We'll be here all day, but
Yeah.
the environmental aspect to it, I know that like you said, the natural habitat that's already there.
Let's just talk a simple thing of litter. Let's just talk litter and how terrible litter is. Okay. Several owners on Beach Drive daily go down there and pick up trash left by people that walk up and down the beach. They do. Every day they pick it up. There's some people that'll spend several hours during a specific day during the week to make their property beautiful on the other side, on the south side of the road. Now, we have one little park down there in front of the Episcopal Church.
Yes.
And then we have Lake Caroline, which is the end of a water discharge, freshwater discharge. Well, it's brackish up to 10th Street. There's a dam there. It's fresh north of there, and it's brackish south of there. It's tidal and fresh and salt mixed there. And there's several houses that obviously live along it. But that is a waterway. Where that waterway dumps in and the end of Lake Caroline East and Lake Caroline West, that whole area there was part of the developer's property and has ended up basically as a city park now. So we have that location, we have the other one.
Yeah.
I walk Beach Drive all the time. My wife and I walk, well, we walk on the bay just south of Beach Drive. So we're there a lot. And when you have an increase in pedestrian traffic, you have an increase in litter. It's just the case. It may be cigarette butts, it may be other paraphernalia that you find. It can be cans, it can be bags, it can be plastic and paper, but it goes up. Now that's in two isolated areas, and in my lifetime of living there 24 years, I have seen a tremendous uptick in pollution, in litter. Well, there's also noise pollution. There's other kinds of pollution, but we're just talking about
don't Al Gore me right now.
Well, no, what I mean, there are, when I say noise pollution, I mean, that park is closed in front of the Episcopal Church at dark. However, the neighbors who live there, I would be very interested. I've never pulled up, but you can pull up with the Panama City Police Department with their automated computer-assisted dispatch, their CAD system. You can pull up an address or a group of addresses and request how many times has the department received a complaint or a request to respond there or something. I would love to see the number on noise complaints at midnight, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning down there at that place. So those people that live there that are trying to live a life, they're dealing with the road and road traffic, and they knew that when they bought it, and they understood that during rush hour, it's probably going to be a lot of noise of tires running down the road. However, we wouldn't expect in the middle of the night to have the kind of things that would be waking us up that are waking us up with the kind of noise pollution going on there. So it might be a loud stereo, it might be two people fighting, it just might be people being loud, but that's an aspect of pollution. Now we're going to add a 12-foot wide sidewalk with the potential of a lot of pedestrian traffic. I would think if it were there would be a lot of pedestrian traffic there. I wouldn't think there wouldn't be. I don't know where they're going to park their vehicles. I don't know where the egress and the ingress will be to get on that sidewalk. It's very, very limited already. As you know, downtown parking is extremely limited, and it's built for people to park and go in and go to retail shops and restaurants and government entities as well. But it's bad down there. Well, there is no place to park on Beach Drive. There is nowhere. There's residential roads that tee into Beach Drive. There's a couple of parking places in relation to the number of expected pedestrian traffic to be down there. There's been no real view and look at, well, where are all these people really going to park? But if you live down there, you've asked that question numerous times in your own head and to your neighbors and friends. Where are all these cars going to park that are going to be utilizing this? I mean, and then how will you walk down safely to get on this path from where you have parked if the same type of safety hasn't been worked into where those pedestrians are walking from to get down there? I don't know if you've been around there during 4th of July or Mardi Gras.
Oh, no, I have been.
So just imagine that kind of potentiality on larger holidays or beautiful days or whatever. It's so that hasn't been addressed. So the pollution aspect. We'll get off Beach Drive, but the point is, number one, we can't afford it. It cannot be built for that kind of money. We could talk about the Martin Theater after 1 month or 60 days of initiating that $30-something million project. There was a $680,000 change order that was uttered to the city that was their legal right to do versus a stipulation in that contract. And our city attorney informed everyone, this is a contract, we signed it, we owe that money. And we had to pay it. That was within the first 30 or 60 days of the Martin Theater project taking off. So do you think that the potential for that may exist on the Beach Drive project? I think it may exist for just oops, we didn't catch that, or we're liable for this money. Well, you've only got $8 million. I am telling you right now, that project cannot be done. And I would request that you reach out to Panhandle Engineering and request one of their people in the know there, whether it be an engineer or the owner or someone in the know on finances of the average cost for projects, come down here and talk to you on your podcast.
Probably Chris Forehand.
About the real life number in reality of what the plans they have furnished to the city would cost the city to execute.
I'm going to make a note of that. I might give Chris a call. I know him. He probably doesn't remember me. But you know what? That's a good idea.
I would love to be proven wrong about that.
Who knows? Like, again, I'm not an engineer, and I have no idea. But I'm
not
take
an engineer, but I hire them.
Yeah, I take your word for it, because it actually was. So I worked for I worked for I was a field rep for them for a little while. So I've looked. I've actually had to go to quite a few city halls and things of that nature to go dig up permits before to see, who's building what, so I know how to contact and be like, hey man, I see you get this project that's coming up a year from now. You just got the bid. Hey man, you call me, I'm going to give you a good price on equipment. So I've seen some projects before, and yeah, you're right. The more and more you talk about it, that does seem, because I'm thinking Beach Drive is 1.47 miles from the, that's from the bridge right there all the way down. And the only reason why I know that is because I used to run it every day.
Okay.
So, and for road, don't quote me on this. This could be wrong, but I think it's like $1 million a mile normally. Now you're saying that you're going to do a side or a
Consider it 3 lanes. You're going to have to affect the other. There's no way you're going to run equipment up and down that freshly paved road to construct that sidewalk and not damage it. You are not going to be able to. There's going to be repairs on the northerly most portion of the existing road. There will be some repairs done to that.
So my argument on the Beach Drive thing was, and I swear to God, we're about to get off this. My argument on the Beach Drive thing that I voiced my opinion with Brian Granger on this, because I used to say, when I was heavy, I used to run Beach Drive all the time. I lived off of 19th Street. I actually would run down Balboa.
Oh, from 19th Street?
From, so there's a townhouse that I lived in that was near Northside Elementary.
Okay.
Those townhouses right there?
Yeah, I know
so
exactly where they are.
I lived right there,
Yeah.
and so I would run down Balboa and hit Beach Drive and run down Beach Drive and then come back up, whatever. It was about a 5-mile run. And so it was nice, but I have caught lips on that sidewalk where I've busted my freaking face because the lips on it from fucking erosion is so bad. And so my argument to Brian Granger was, I said, you guys can't even maintain a sidewalk, but you're going to put this over there on the other side of the road.
You sure you don't want to run for commission seat 1?
Oh, I don't live in Panama City. And I did the county thing. Daniel kicked my ass. So I'm not looking forward to doing that ever again. But anyway, my point is that if you can't maintain a fucking sidewalk,
they can't maintain parks. They can't maintain sidewalks. They can't maintain roads. They can't maintain water mains, water meters, fire hydrants, stormwater runoff. They don't have a budget for any of it. So if we don't have a budget for things that are falling apart, it's like having a child and they want a new bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
They've not taken care of their old bicycle, but they want a brand new bicycle, and they're demanding a new bicycle. And you as the adult have to say, no, Junior,
Yeah.
You can't have that. You can't even take care of the old bicycle. I'm not going to get you a new bicycle with more expensive tires and a shifter and a set of mirrors that you're going to, no.
So that was my argument about it. And he did, I mean, he gave a pretty solid answer on it, you know.
Okay. What's the solid answer?
And go back and watch the podcast and enjoy it. But I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, and I don't want to mess it up. So, but he did give a decent answer on that, how it would be done. And so, but that was my whole thing about it. Now, again, I don't live in Panama City, but that right there has been, I mean, I've had, man, I tell you, I got scars from where I've caught a lip.
All right, so if we get off that topic, let's talk about some other generalities that are never addressed as these plans are made and as these numbers are thrown around for the people that reside in Panama City. So 2020 census, U.S. Census, you could take it or leave it, but it is a census. It was an effort was made, and there are some numbers developed from the census. Back then, 35,900 people, but I think it's about 36 to 38,000 now.
I'll take you for it.
All right.
Your word for it.
Average household income, not head of household, average household income, mean household income, $48,000.
Normally we try to go off the median, but I get it. The 48 grand household income, because I think now, so I know the county. The county's a lot lower than 48 grand.
Okay.
So, but if you're saying the city is that would make a little bit more sense because it's a smaller.
It is a smaller entity. Yeah. But of the 30, let's hit it in the middle, 37,000.
Okay.
Of the 37,000 residents in Panama City, a whopping 16,388 are gainfully employed. That's less than half. The other half are either, if they're not gainfully employed, that means they are either retired, disabled, or unemployed. I don't know of any other classification to give that, but if you got 16,388 working and employed, they are carrying the load. And if you're retired and the load changes, as in a fire tax or something else, then if your budget is tight, which most Americans, I'm 61. This is the worst economy I have ever survived. It is awful. I have several children that are adult age. None of them can live on their own and afford it. Two are degreed, one has a license, and the other one's in college. But the point is, when I was coming up in this country, a single person could easily afford a place to live on their own. And if you spent more than 25% of your monthly income or a week's pay on your domicile, whether you own, rented, leased, or whatever, you were looked at as, quote, living above your means. You should not fiscally responsibly spend more than 25% of your monthly income where you live. Now, you can't help but spend 60 to 70% of your monthly income if you're a single person out there trying to find a place to live on your own. It's frightening how expensive things are. So back to this information from the census. We have a 17.5% at or below the poverty line. When discussing the taxes, the efforts on the direction the city takes, I just do not see that they're addressing the fact that the constituency in this town are not at the socioeconomic level that they seem to think they are with the types of things they want to do. For example, welcome to the Cove sign.
What's up, man?
Yeah, let's look at it.
Yeah.
Let's look at it. The website on
what data?
on
Which
what they
data?
have classified the funds for Beach Drive at.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
What website are we talking
I
about?
had no
The
idea.
census.
Oh, the census. Okay, wonderful. And this is the current U.S. Census, not the 2020
Datacensus.gov.
Yeah, 2020.
datacensus.gov. Okay, 2020.
Yep.
Okay, what's our? I can't see your half of the screen. So population and people. We can go down to population.
32,939. So it's
It's a little higher on this.
yeah. So 32,000, 61,125 as far as income and poverty.
Income and poverty.
That's the median household income is 61,125. And
But
this
what
is
does
for
income
Panama
and
City.
poverty mean? That's just a label, but they're only giving
Yeah.
you the income, not the poverty level.
This is just the median overall income. So, education. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, man. Got all the time.
It'll change for you. That's why I don't want you to be reading something.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're good. This is so cool. I love doing this stuff.
Without my glasses,
I'm sorry.
You're just gonna have to walk me through.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh wait, he could probably zoom in if he wanted to.
Okay, what do we got here?
Yeah. There we go. So total, let's see here, less than 10,000. The estimate is 14,807. Margin of error is 566. Estimate 8,000. So the percent allocated household income in the past 12 months, 30. It's man, that's a lot of data. What are we looking for?
Well,
Yeah, no.
I guess the numbers will vary, but the
Yeah,
reality,
yeah,
the
yeah,
reality, the
you're-
reality is this:
It's close. So
we're not Miami. We're not
Yeah.
a place where there's lots of industry. We're not a place where there's tremendous job opportunity. There's a lot of tourism,
Yeah.
service industry jobs. We have 2 military bases. We don't have a paper mill anymore. We do have oceaneering. We do have the port. But most generally speaking, this is not a target-rich environment for
Yeah.
high-paying salaries in Panama City.
do you have an economic development plan that you want to share?
I do not have an economic development plan.
You're like cut spending. Okay, so
You can have all the plan, like Mike Tyson
Yeah.
said, you can have a great plan till you get punched in the face, right? Or in the mouth. Yeah. It's a great plan. But here's a reality that anyone can do and everyone can do. You can cut your spending. You can cut and there are so many places and examples of how the spending that you may not cut, you can change the way you spend it to make it more beneficial for the citizens. I'll give you a small example. We have in the city a system and a rule, guideline, whatever you want to call it, that says if the city is going to spend more than this amount of money, the city needs to obtain a minimum of 3 bids for that, whatever it may be. Maybe a service, maybe a supply, maybe a contract or whatever. You need to have at least 3 bids. Now, why do you think that's a good policy?
to at least have 3 bids.
Yeah.
And to make sure there's competition to make sure that you're actually doing your due diligence.
There we go. And if you have more than 3 bids and one's really high and one's really low, the really low one, let's help him and save him from his own disaster and not give him that contract because it's pretty evident he missed something, right? And the one that's super high, that guy's too busy to do the job. So he's thinking to himself, if I'm going to get this job and it's going to really stress me and my guys or my abilities,
It's got to be worth it.
it's got to be worth
Yeah.
it. So the more bids and the more median the middle bids are, the more realistic that number is to complete that job because these people are in competition. They're wanting to make a reasonable profit and cover their overhead, but they're going to be in the middle of the bar pocket. So the more bids you have, the better for whomever is signing the front of that check. Okay? That's the taxpayer. That's the citizen. When you have something worth $34 million and climbing, and you get a bid, it is time to stop in your tracks and say, what are we doing? We have a system already in place. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we need a watchdog, which is supposed to be the city commission. They are the elected officials from the public who pay taxes to watch over the bureaucrats who are hired in government to perform the function of government.
So on the issue of bidding, one of the biggest things that like I've always, and I hit on this a lot, but you're out to get a decent bid. Do you believe that local builders, infrastructure contractors should get a little bit of an advantage?
And
of
before we talk
out-of-state-
about that, let's just talk about the system currently in place.
Okay, go ahead.
The city utilizes a website.
Yeah, and it's again, Ryan Granger complained about it because you have to pay to use it.
There are
He's just-
3
Yeah.
building entities in Panama City and within the city limits of Panama City by their own occupational licenses. So, for example, let's just use the Martin Theater. We're going to another little phase here. Let's talk about the Martin Theater project. Okay. It's in the city limits. It's owned by the city. Personally, I don't know why the city of Panama City owns the Martin Theater. The city didn't build it. A private entity built it and owned and operated it for X amount of years, and the city ended up with it. Now the city owns a thing called the Martin Theater. So the government owns it. I don't know the history behind it, but we own it. We're going to spend money on it to fix it up.
How much? 32 million?
34 at the minimum,
Okay.
and it might go as high as 38 before it's all said and done. But it's 30 million
Prices go
plus.
up, they never go
It's
down.
30, it's 30 million plus.
Yeah.
So to back up on the bid process alone, we can talk about the quagmire of the theater, the fact that it's never, ever going to have an ROI. The ROI on that is probably 10,000 years. There's never going to be, it'll never be a moneymaker like the marinas could have been. It will never be a moneymaker.
We'll hit on the marina in a second because I do have a good opinion on that one.
Okay, so let's talk about the bid process to do work on the Martin Theater. The Martin Theater, so there's 3 different division of licenses for building contractors in the state of Florida. There's residential, commercial, and general. Anything over 3 stories requires the highest degree of building certificate in the state of Florida, known as a general contractor's license. 3 stories or less, unlimited square footage, or repairs or remodel or additions to a already configured and built and certified building over 3 stories can be accomplished by a CBC, certified building contractor. That's a commercial residential license. And then a residential builder can do no residential projects, and he's limited to 3 stories and unlimited square footage as well on a residential project. There are over 700 certified building contractors that work regularly in Panama City proper area. And if you look up the number of occupational licenses that actually live in the city limits, it's in the hundreds as well. And there are 3 builders association groups. I'm not going to name them, but there are 3 of them. They have wonderful people that are members of these organizations. They have wonderful presidents that are in these organizations. Years ago, the system would be an invitation to bid. And depending on how much you wanted to protect the public trust in the widow's mite would depend on how hard you worked on getting the word out there that there's this project. These are the requirements for your license for you to be able to bid on this project. Please bid on this project. That's an invitation to bid. You get it in a formal letter. And the normal procedure is you're given a certain time, you're given a spec sheet, a set of plans, and a certain time frame to have your bid prepared by. You send this sealed bid into the office and or department that's running appropriations for that city, entity, government, whatever. There is a date given when everyone who submitted that bid shows up at a big room at a big table, and someone there opens up every person's bid that's been submitted, and they read it out loud for the first time in front of everyone and set it to the side, and they do that for all the bids that are turned in and for everyone that's there. Very clean, very transparent, and can be very embarrassing for the one that's super low and the one that's super high. I've been to these bids. I've seen this done. It is a wonderful way to have transparency and protect the public trust in the widow's mite. And the one that's very low is asked, do you want to go through with this and keep your bid on the table, or would you like to retract it? I'd like to retract it, because when he hears all the other numbers, he realizes he's missed something. Mm-hmm. I've seen that happen. They leave. They go to the high one. Let's say theoretically you got 10 people sitting at the table. The high and low leave, and maybe the too low and the too high leave. Then you're left with the ones in the middle. Now, it doesn't state anywhere that the city has to pick the low one. That they can peruse and talk and ask about, well, what do you offer more so that would lend the city to, want to choose your bid over these others, and not necessarily as monetary, but monetary has a lot to do with it. And you discuss it out. all in the open, and then you adjourn, and then later the city or whomever announces who they're going with on that bid. But everyone was there to hear the pros and cons. Everyone was there to hear the numbers, and the sealed bids were opened up at the same time in a public format. Well, that's not how it's done now. And if you're not a member of this particular service online and you don't pay the fee and therefore you don't get the notification, like none of these folks did, then how do you have the opportunity to assist the city in doing due diligence to protect the widow's mite and the tax and the public trust? I would humbly suggest to you that we need to go to a system like what I've described and get away from the system where we have one person bothered to bid. One person bothered to bid.
I agree with you.
I don't understand that. I'm just a very simple-minded person. I'm not very complicated. I don't enjoy making simple things complicated. I don't think there's any benefit in it. And I think if you have to talk for hours on end about a certain topic, then you might not have the kind of experience that it takes to make it simple. But for me, it's very, very simple. Do it honest, do it clean, do it forthright, invite people. There are builders in this town, however, that I have spoken to that said, I wouldn't have bothered to give it because I'm already in an understanding of what the city wants, and it's not necessarily that system. Now, that's bothersome to me as well. Once again, I don't work down there. I just know what I see, what I hear, and what is evident and clear to me. And so, for example, let's use the Cove Monument sign, March 1st, 2017. The Cove Monument sign. There's a picture. You can pull it up online if you want. It's a concrete base. It's a brick column, and it is a brick and stucco and stone base behind it. Okay, it's pretty. It's nice. It's good. You're a layman. I'm going to put you.
Ask me, how much do you think that thing cost? Is that what you're going to ask me?
Yes.
12 grand. Whoa, shit! What the fuck? Is that real?
That's real.
Where'd you got this from? The city website? 38,472 bucks.
Now you know the one.
Oh no! Oh man.
No, we don't have to go any further. No. Okay, now, Glen Cove. You know that monument, right?
Oh no, not the same companies.
How much is that one?
My God.
Do you think we need to look at purchasing and we need to look at a bid system? And do you think we need to have transparency? Do you think we need to take care of the widow's mite and the public trust? I didn't hear the number.
So the Glenwood Monument sign, is this the date that it was agreed upon?
I don't know agreed upon because no one can furnish me with the architectural plans and the architectural estimates. Just this.
So this is what we actually spent?
Mm-hmm. Well, what we know of that we spent, but I can't get the architect's bill.
Huh.
This is to construct.
So the Glenwood Monument sign, we had a base bid of $81,424. And that, do we have a picture of? Can you please pull this picture up of the Glenwood Monument sign, Panama City, Florida? Because I want to see, because I saw the one for the Cove, and I know what that one looks like. I don't know what this one looks like.
It's bigger.
Oh, is it bigger?
It's bigger.
Okay, because I'm like, all right.
It ain't $84,000 big, but it's bigger.
What do you think that? I mean, I said 12 grand, and I thought that was high. So, but
you would not be injured if you were a contractor and you built that sign for $12,000. You would not be injured.
Yeah, so one bid came in at $84,424, and another builder came in at $94,706. So we don't know which one got it. Do you know?
Yes, I know which one got it.
And it's probably in there. That's I believe it's this one, right? Is this it?
That's it. Yeah.
That right there was. There were 2 bidders that came in, and one was 84 grand. It was at 82.
Well, we paid $86,524 for that one. We paid $86,524.
What happened to like Glen Haven's got like a wooden sign, I think.
I hate to see the cost of that one.
Oh no. That
These are tips of icebergs. These are tips of icebergs.
you're just trying to show that
I'm just giving examples of
spending.
when you ask me, what's my plan? My plan is to take care of what we have. My plan is to be fiscally responsible, hold people accountable, to use a three bid minimum process. It's 3 bid minimum. It's just like spacing in a 2x4 wall in a residential single story home. 2x4s can be 16 inches on center. It doesn't say you can't put them 12 inches on center and make it better and stronger, but minimum of 16 inches on center is the building code. Well, we have a minimum of 3 bids. I would say let's get 10 bids. I'd say let's do our job and work.
Yeah, because both of those only had 2 bids per one. Yeah.
And builders have told me there's reasons why they don't bother.
Both of those are local companies too.
But if you had a sealed bid utterance and were given a date, time, location to show up when they would all be opened, this would change.
Whew, buddy.
Let's talk about SweetBay.
Oh no, let's not talk about the CDD. Is that where you're going?
You want to call it a CDD? Okay. I call it sweet and sour. They got the sweet and we got the sour.
Okay, I'll listen.
I'm going to give you some lightweight math. I'm not going to dive deep. And I'm going to tell you why I can't dive deep and no one can dive deep. Because this agreement is so full of variables that you really can't know until it happens what it's going to be. But it's going to be a lot. A tremendous amount of money over 45 years. Tremendous amount of money. Some examples. Or how the deal is formatted, generally speaking, on a scratch the surface level. It's for the homes built from now on, basically from December.
And just for the listener, I know you're about to go over this, so we can cite this. Where did this come from? Did you get this from the city website?
Nope.
Okay.
County property appraiser.
Okay. Cool. Go ahead. I just wanted to make sure that I want the listeners to be able to go and look at this.
Right.
I want them to be able to see
I
it.
wonder if this has got a website address on it here. Let's see. No, it doesn't. But
You can go to
it's
Dan
okay
Salve.
because the way this is written, Dan Sal's job, the poor man and his staff and crew, the amount of paperwork they have to do now, because the way this is written is it's a differential. The value of the home when the occupancy certificate was issued versus the value every year following that up to 45 years. The differential value between when it was built and what it's worth next year, what it's worth year 2, what it's worth year 3, etc. Okay. So that's a ton of work to do that paperwork just to be able to compute what the city will give back to the entity that is building SweetBay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Thank you.
I want to make sure that I'm.
So we're going to talk about a house. Now, the estimates out there for the number of houses built vary, but it's a lot. It's 400 acres, right? So it's a lot.
Ask if they would pause so I can get a drink.
Let's pause. Let's pause.
We'll come right back. I got it.
Let's pause.
Do you want water?
Yeah, I'll take a water. Yeah, thanks.
I'm Chris with Clubs Real Estate, back with another market update. The last year has been one heck of a ride in the world of real estate. Stretching back to December of 2023, we saw a median sale price right at $353,000 locally, a number that wasn't exceeded in any given month in 2024. We closed out this last year with a local median sale price of $330,000, down roughly 6.5% year over year. Over the last 18 months, we've seen a decrease in demand for single-family homes and a consistent rise in available supply, which naturally leads to a decrease in home prices. On average, a new house that's priced right and marketed well should expect to spend about 61 days on the market before selling. If you're looking to sell a personal residence, now is likely a great time to do so. On the flip side, if you're looking to buy, keep an eye out for a solid deal on a house you'll love. Interested in seeing how this affects your real estate decisions? Reach out and let one of our knowledgeable team members guide you through your individual journey.
45% of the ad valorem collected from a home in SweetBay, from construction, let's say it's January 1, 2025 and on for 45 years, on one home. Let's say the house sells for $500,000. That's
right.
That's being
that's being very nice.
That's being
in
generous.
SweetBay. Yeah.
Okay. The assessment that Dan Sal can make on that property for ad valorem is only 90% of that $500,000. He can't assess the whole thing. So 90% of $500,000, $450,000. Current millage rate is 4.7999. Once again, we're going to be generous and conservative on these numbers because you and I both know millage rates do not go down. And if you think the millage rate will stay the same for the next 45 years, you haven't looked at what happens to millage rates over 45 years. They don't go down.
Yeah, we were at our millage rate didn't go up for over a decade, and it just jumped up by 25% this past year.
Okay.
So at 4.7999 for a millage rate for 2024, the tax on that is $2,159.96. Less 10%, 5% for fire, 5% for police. That's where we get that 45%. It's a split. It's a 50-50 split on 90% of the money. So it's 45% of the overall ad valorem. Okay. That equals $1,943.96 divided in half for the city, half for the developer. That's $971.98 that's going to go to the city, and $978.91 that's going to go to the developer. One home, 45 years, that's $43,739.10. If it's 100 homes, that's $4,373,910. They're going to build a lot more than 100 homes. Yeah,
Currently, they've been building between 70 and 100 homes per year. They've had better years. They've had leaner years. But we're generous on the cost of the home, and you all know they're going to go up. We're generous on the millage rate. It's going to go up. And we're only talking about 100 homes in 45 years, 44,373,000. So how many homes is possible to build out there? And if it's 43,739 for one home, let's just say 1,000 homes are going to go in out there.
Okay. I wonder if is there enough property for that?
Can we pull?
We can
pull up the projected number of homes in SweetBay from here on out?
Yeah, look up SweetBay and see how many homes are projected to be built there by end of phase, or what phase are they in right now?
I would just say, what's the projected number of homes to be built in SweetBay from now till completion? Because every home from now on out is included in this. And we haven't built the marina. We haven't built the townhouses and condos on the marina. We haven't built the upper level homes out there on the water next to the marina.
Are you talking about the Panama City Marina?
SweetBay.
Yeah, I know. So they're going to have their own marina.
So we're being exceptionally generous with these numbers. It's going to be a lot more.
Yeah.
It can only be a lot more. So I'm saying in a generous way, the city has decided for whatever reason to give a multi-billion-dollar company that's developing SweetBay almost half, 45%.
What? Pull it up. Okay, it must be pretty bad. if he's saying this. Let's see.
So we've got the number for one house ready to be multiplied by the number of homes projected to be built out there from now till
3,200 residential units at the full build out.
at the full build out, but I don't know how many are existing.
Well, we're going based on what that's what you asked for. So you can say what is existing there now.
Let's do that. How many homes exist there now?
How many homes exist? But yeah, with plans to grow approximately 3,000
Wait a minute.
homes.
With plans to grow
Over the next 15
but grow two.
Yeah.
So grow two would be inclusive of what's built now, right?
15 to 20 years. We're currently working on phase 1 of the project. So if they're saying, with plans to grow 3,000 homes or whatever.
You want to just cut that in half and say 15,000 just for argument's sake? Let's cut it in half. They're nowhere near halfway done out there, right?
Oh, 1,500?
I mean, 15. I said 15. I meant 1,500.
1,500 homes. Yeah. I mean,
just for a discussion?
Yeah. Just for discussion.
For potential earnings for what could happen?
So why is this bad?
I'm going to explain it to you.
Go ahead. Because you explain the money and I'm going, okay, that's a lot. So...
Okay.
And things are going to go up over time.
This is conservative. These are conservative
numbers.
numbers.
We're using conservative numbers.
I mean, anyone would agree. Yeah. These are conservative numbers.
Because last time I checked, a 4-bedroom home for my family, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home is about $700,000 in SweetBay right now. $65,608,650.
All right.
That's a conservative number.
Conservative number. It's a huge number monetarily for anyone to consider. But
and that's over the span of how much time?
45 years.
45 years.
That's a super conservative number.
65
I would
million.
not be afraid to say $100 million. And
I would.
It could
I
be $200
would be
million.
safe to say 200.
It could be $200 million, right?
Yeah.
Now, why is that a good or bad thing?
Okay.
What's that?
Oh yeah, what's the average cost of a home in SweetBay? Just so we can add that.
Sure.
Because I bet you it's about $600,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's the average. Oh, I was wrong. The median listing price is $559,000. The median sold home price is $489,000. So okay, in SweetBay, Panama City, the median listing home price is around $559,000.
Okay.
So
we're conservative.
we were conservative. Yes.
And the millage rate is only going to go up. It is. It has. I mean, let's
has
talk about
to.
things here.
Well, yeah.
Worst economy in my lifetime, and we're barely hanging on. So you have two choices: collect more, or spend less. And so fire tax is a prime example. You tell a bunch of people we need a fire tax. What do you think it's going to be used for? What do you think if a government entity tells you we need a fire assessment? What do you think where do you think that money's going to absolutely go? And especially when they make it like eminent.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to go to the fire department. It went to the general fund.
Where can we find that?
Online. Just look at the fire department budget and the city's budget plan over the last 3 years. Look at their budget, and then look at what did the fire tax bring in. Their budget should have gone up.
Yeah.
Everything that fire tax brought in, should it not?
That's what it's there for.
That's what everybody believes. So in other words, we're talking about transparency, truthfulness, and taking care of people whose median income is $48,000, who are struggling because only 16,000 of 38,000 people are gainfully employed.
Which brings up the next thing. If the median income or the average income is $48,000, how in the hell can you afford a fucking house in SweetBay?
Because you're not median. You're the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
You are the cream of the crop. You've done well. And I have no problem whatsoever with people who do well, who have gotten into a particular career or a particular tech. I have no. The American dream is to succeed. Yeah. There's two camps in America. There's two, in my opinion, there's two camps in America when it considers how it views government. One camp believes government should exist to provide a safe environment for me to thrive. Another camp believes government should exist to take care of me. If you want to get down to brass tacks, these people said, I've been provided an environment to thrive. Yep. And you can call it whatever you want, whatever kind of nomenclature you want to put on the success of these folks that are living out there in my homes. More power to them. I support them, whatever I've chosen to be a public servant for a majority of my life, never planning on having a big bankroll in my latter years. I got my kicks out of being a public servant. I got my happiness out of being a public servant. I thrived on it. I didn't care about the dollar signs. Some people, they care about dollar signs. More power to them. That's what makes them tick. I have no problem with those folks. And they went into plans and ways and careers that brought them that. I got no problem with that. Wonderful for them. I hold nothing against success of people. Wonderful for them. And my success was, what I served people doing, and I'm happy with it completely. However, when it comes to taking the tax funds of people who are not in those particular socioeconomic systems, and every penny means a lot to them, don't take it from them. And you can say, well, you're not taking it from them. You're taking it from the SweetBay people. Well, I would argue with you. Those ad valorem taxes were collected by the city. What are ad valorem taxes used for in a city? The entire border of a city. That's why ad valorem are what they are. That's why the rate is what it is. We have based this number currently, 4.7999, on the needs of the city as a whole, not on the needs of a small group somewhere whose developer is going to get half those taxes back given to them. It's beyond ridiculous. Yeah. Now, let's talk.
It's subsidized, basically.
Mm-hmm. Why are we subsidizing the multi-billion-dollar entity?
Shit.
Did somebody, when you put sod in your yard, did the city of Panama City Beach come out and say, hey, man, listen, we see you made a nice improvement to your house. How much that cost you? Well, $400 in sod, and it took me a day, and I think I'm worth $400 a day, so that's $600. Hey, we're going to give you a check for $300. We appreciate what you did. Does that happen to you? Does that happen to anybody you know? Then why does that happen to a billion-dollar developer? You need to ask yourself that question. Why does that happen? I can make speculation, but I don't know exactly why that happened. I just know it did, except for one person that voted against it. And for Jan Smith, the Panama City clerk and treasurer, who wrote I wish I'd have brought that. You could pull it up online if you like. Go to Panama City, archive documents, city treasurer, SweetBay, something like that. Maybe it'll pop right up for you. Wrote a 3-page letter explaining this is bad. So let's just keep it simple. This is bad. Don't do this. And she was told at a city commission meeting, or it was said in her presence, that our city clerk treasurer, Jan Smith, is a capable, wonderful, qualified CPA for basically the run-of-the-mill functioning, but she's not an investment CPA. And I watched Jan Smith kind of be taken aback by that statement. These are people that on the one hand, on a daily basis, are praising her intelligence, her subject matter expertise, her skills and her training and her background and accomplishment at another large Florida city before she came here and took this job as our city clerk and treasurer. And now she's being told in public by a dais that you don't know what you're talking about. And she copied the mayor, the commissioners, the manager, the assistant managers, and a few others, and posted it for all to see. And we did it anyway with a dissenting vote of Mayor Roham.
I don't think I've ever.
While he's looking that up, let's talk about other fees in the city.
Jesus.
I was
Wow.
Tip of the iceberg.
Well, what's crazy is, it's like, again, and I'm going to say this real quick before we even read this, you know, this is the reason why long form podcasts are the way that they are. You would never be able to explain this shit up
Not
there.
in a million years
on
with a 2-minute answer.
like, you know, WJHG, WMBB, and, you know, the GOP forum, whatever forums you got coming up.
Well, that's what we have. That's what we have to get the.
And I know. And so, like, but when you go over this stuff, you know, and I will say this, though. I'm going to say this. The mayor, if the mayor knows all of this, he has done a real crappy job of explaining it from the podium. Because this right here, he's taken up these meetings that have been 5-6 hours. And it's like, somebody needs to be able to explain this like you have.
Jan Smith explained it that day.
Just like this?
And it didn't matter. It didn't matter.
I'd have to,
She gave them that letter days before the commission meeting. They had time to peruse it. They had time to ask her questions. They voted 4-1. So you might have all the time in the world, like, to be able to articulate this and so on and so forth. But it's a commission that's a 5-member panel. The mayor is just a commissioner at large. If you understand the city charters for state of Florida, he has no more authority or power than any other commissioner. He runs the meeting with the gavel. It's a procedural situation where, you know, the mayor is a commissioner at large that basically, you know, MCs the meeting. However, he has no more power than any other commissioner.
All right, now we can.
Yeah, so I was trying to find it. Panama City Clerk, Treasurer, SweetBay. Was there anything else? 'Cause I just keep getting the contact information for them.
Yeah, bring up her name, because you're saying there's a letter that we can look it up.
Jan Smith, City Clerk, Treasurer, SweetBay ad valorem report.
SweetBay Development, Mixed Use, 4,000. Letter to Commission?
Yeah, let's try that. Oh, that's just go to the bottom. Who wrote it? Is it Burke and Blue? Is it the city attorney, Nevin Zimmerman?
Yeah, Zimmerman.
No, that's not it. No.
Okay, I got this back what we were talking about earlier. I'm gonna send this over to Kendall. That way he can throw this up, and we'll wait till we get done talking about this to be able to go over that. Because this was
And and if you're speaking about the SweetBay thing, the Beach Drive thing one more time. Does it even matter to anybody that if the city wants to do something in their neighborhood and the entire neighborhood, well, let's say 95% of the neighborhood says, we don't really want this here, please don't do this. Does it matter to anybody in this city or in the country or in America anymore that if the neighborhood doesn't want it and the government works for the neighborhood, that should carry weight and it should be squashed immediately from the beginning? Let's say they wanted to put a 3-foot wide asphalt path all the way around the shoreline in the cove.
okay.
Let's say 10 feet up from the shoreline, you know, and I wanted to put it. How well do you think that would go over in the cove?
Oh, you'd have people rioting in the streets. I believe so. So, I think
Now, I know there's legalities, there's property rights. I'm just saying in general.
Yeah.
It's okay to live over here and tell these people, we need to do this to your neighborhood. However, if the shoe was on the other foot and some crazy thing came out about a path all the way around the cove for health and nature and walking and the beautification of the area, do you think for a second that would be tolerated?
Let's redirect for a second. I'm going to get off SweetBay. Now that I had
now that you have your knowledge, give me your further light and knowledge.
Actually, this is kind of gonna.
And you read it on letterhead. You read it on.
Can you pull up the letter that was sent to the mayor? I just sent it to you from the Florida Department of Transportation. That's why you do research, right? That's why we do research.
Well, if you care about something,
Yeah.
then we certainly need to know where the legalities lie and where the reality
You're
lies.
you know, it's kind of funny. You're one of the first people that have come in here and you've been like, hey man, yeah, let's pull this up.
Yeah,
Because-
please.
yeah. This is good. So, other people.
Well, it matters because who you're reaching with
It
this.
fucking matters because there's an election going on right
well,
now.
it matters no matter
And-
what.
and-
Truth
but I'm
matters. Yeah.
saying right now, this is
Yeah.
a big point. Like if you're, because a lot of people, hey man, I was guilty of it. Like one of the things that I did when I was running for office is I went around spitting out for months about how the Bay County Commission had given themselves a raise. And then I found out that's not the case at all. It was appointed by the governor. The governor decides that because we're not a chartered. So, but the thing about it is that comes from Tallahassee. But I was going around telling people something that was because I heard something
Okay.
and I didn't do my research, and I paid for that mistake big time. And so,
And in the scheme of things, of all the things that are facets around the Beach Drive thing, that point about what can or can't happen to the money, in my humble opinion, is completely irrelevant to the fact that you're going to need $12 million more dollars.
yeah, well, actually, I think we're about to kind of prove your point a little bit here, because that letter kind of describes what you're, as I just looked at it very, very briefly. So
Okay.
we'll read it together.
Okay.
I don't know if have you seen it yet. So there was a
I
letter.
know what this woman whom I trust, because she is so researched and she had the documents for me to view. So I don't know what the
Was it
letter.
Patty Gooch?
Huh?
Was it Patty Gooch?
No, if you get me, I am so embarrassed to tell you that I know so many names in the last 25, 35 days that
Oh yeah.
they're running together,
Yeah,
brother.
together.
Once again, I'll stress it again. I'm a simple man who was sitting on his porch wanting to watch sunsets with my wife. We're about to be empty nesters. And when this came to my attention, I just could not.
Yeah.
I just could not sit by and watch that happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's look at this real quick. This was a letter that was sent to
April 1st
Yep.
to the mayor.
To the mayor from the Florida Department of Transportation.
Reference repurposing of funds request.
Yep. It was he put in the request for repurposing those funds, and it says,
Okay.
Dear Mayor Rowan, it has come to my attention the city has requested information concerning the Florida Department of Transportation ability to repurpose funds from one project to another. During March 26th commission meeting, it was stated the department had not responded to specific requests from the city on the matter. There appears to be some confusion as the correspondence received by the department. On March the 10th, I, as well as others who work for the department, received a similar email. All emails contained the same request in the body of email named, could you please direct me to the ordinance regarding the repurposing of the...
Sorry, I'm scrolling.
Yeah, I know, I can see. Now I got to sit back here. Hold on. Grants so that I can understand the process involved, along with the signature block for the mayor of Panama City. However, each email originated from the different and distinct private email address. The validity of such correspondence comes into question when it appears multiple emails are used and none would appear to be official email address. Since a discussion was held during the commission meeting expressing the need for clarification of the department's position concerning repurposing funds on a project, please accept this letter as a response to the request. Prior to the receipt of the above referenced emails on March the 10th, FDOT Director of Development, Tim Smith, had been asked a similar question in correspondence submitting to the Panama City Commission Brian Granger the previous month. The correspondence specifically inquires, does FDOT have the authority to repurpose funds from the project, which is funded by the legislative appropriation? The response sent to Commissioner Granger on February the 14th to the above question stated FDOT assists or participates in the implementation of the facilitation of the appropriation as instructed within the department's statutorily designated powers and duties, the purpose, amount, or need of the appropriation are all considerations of the decisions reserved for the legislature and the governor when developing and approving legislation to appropriately fund the needs of the state of Florida and its residents. Jesus. Okay, good. We're almost done. In the hope of providing clarification, an example would be the funds allocated for the Beach Drive multi-use purpose path that were made available to the city for the use by direction of the legislature of the governor through legislative appropriation. The department, as it must by virtue of its statutorily granted powers and duties, execute the direction of the legislature and the governor depicted in the final approved budget. Since the allocation for the Beach Drive multi-use path had its origination in a legislative appropriation rather than a grant, for example, the department will follow that respective instruction from the legislature and the governor expressed through that legislative appropriation. To do otherwise would run counter to the department duties and obligations as well as the direction of the legislature and governor. In summary, the department does not have the authority to repurpose funds directed for a specific use by the legislature and the governor through legislative appropriation.
And so who does? The legislature and the governor.
Yeah.
They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
They can repurpose that. They can say, okay, you can use this for sidewalks throughout Panama City. They can do that.
The date on the top.
24th or 24th,
April
2024. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So once
year
again,
ago. Yeah.
the attitude and the impression in the minds of all these people that has been forced upon by those in power in Panama City right now is use it like this or lose it. That isn't the truth. And the woman on Beach Drive, and I cannot think of her name, it completely escapes me, has the forms that you submit to the governor and legislation, which I'm assuming is after reading this letter that you have just shown, it would be addressed to the legislature and governor saying, we want it used for this. It's already been collected through whatever means, and you and I know that means tax money. Yep. It's sitting there, and instead of using it for an isolated location, we want to use it for the whole city.
By the way, you asked for this earlier. Can you please bring up the approval? I sent that to you as well, just so you said that you haven't seen a document that had whether or not it was a grant
or a, what was the other term?
State appropriation.
State appropriation.
So I'm actually confused on this now. I'm going to have to reach out to somebody.
Because he called it what?
He called it a state appropriation.
Okay.
The FDOT called it a state appropriation.
Which file is it?
It should, hold on.
Executed agreement or labeled number 1?
Let's see. Executed agreement of the NTP Beach Drive FDOT. Bring that up because then you said, oh, wait. Or was it the PDF? Oh, no, that's the right thing.
I think what I would like to impress upon anyone understanding what is being said is that government can do whatever it wants as long as it's legal. So if the government, the legislature, meaning our legislatures from this area and the governor say, yeah, you can use that. You said that you have run from 19th Street to Beach Drive and you have tripped and fallen. You've hit your face. You have injured yourself. Okay. The sidewalks in this city,
they're horrible.
we can't maintain them.
Yeah.
March 8th, 2023.
Scroll up, Romery. State-funded grant agreement.
Okay, so we have a grant in this document, and we have
A state appropriation in the other one.
Yeah,
That's weird. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's not weird, but
maybe
it
the grant
seems weird.
becomes an appropriation when it hits the Florida Department of Transportation.
This state-funded grant.
Okay, so the bottom line is the legislature still holds the purse strings and the signatures to make this happen. Money's not going to have to go anywhere, doesn't have to fly away. I don't think that our legislature and our governor are vindictive people. I think if the people of Panama City speak, which they have spoken, in an overwhelmingly number of verifiable people with names, addresses, and phone numbers, and have left the statements that you can call me anytime about this, and I'll give my opinion verbally if I need to, that what more does a person in the executive branch of government need? What more do you need than that? I don't know what more you need.
Should have been. same thing.
I'm going to give the look you gave me when you saw that contractor's name on that bid sheet.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you say these things about our media, one must understand and know that they are owned by someone
No,
somewhere.
I agree. My point
Yeah.
is more.
By the way, I appreciate you bringing this stuff.
Well, back to the SweetBay question and the overall glaring fact about this. And I'm glad we got into the details of a lot of things with the beach ride, but with SweetBay. And you could pull this up on the city did a workshop. They did a transportation impact fee workshop. They did 2 of them. I attended both. After the second workshop, the city manager, Jonathan Hayes, was interviewed by the local media. I believe it was local media. It might have been city media. There was a camera in there and they were taping everything. And after that meeting, after that workshop was over, I subsequently saw a clip of our city manager saying, and you can pull it up and play it. I'm sure it's accessible and it's been archived. He said, the average citizen of Panama City, the taxpayer, the public, should not have to pay for things that are responsible to the developer.
You're referring to impact fees.
The transportation impact fee.
So,
He's saying the reason.
I'm gonna give you a story.
Okay.
So you said that
Well,
you,
but the point I'm making is,
Yeah.
on the one hand, he says we're coming up with this Florida legislative allowance for the city to draft an ordinance that says we can have transportation impact fees to new construction. Okay, so to a new home in the old city down here, or the Panama City North up off 231, and it can be for residential commercial. So if it's a grocery store, if it's a doctor or dental office or any other type of business or a residential home there or here, we can assess by Florida law through ordinance adopted by the city and approved by the city commission and drafted by our attorney that we can collect fees for transportation impact fee. It's a tax. They can call it whatever they want.
Yeah.
It's a tax.
I know. I always
You're
laugh
being
at that.
taxed.
Yeah.
And what they're saying is the reason that we're going to collect this money from the developer or the remodeler or the builder is because you, the citizen, should not be expected to pay for the cost of a development or the roads therein. Now, why on the one hand do we make a SweetBay deal where 45% of our ad valorem is going back to somebody who has costs involved in developing a piece of land, the old airport that they bought from the city of Panama City? Why are we okay with this and signing and agreeing to it and then turning right around and telling others who don't happen to be the SweetBay developer that you as a developer building a grocery store or a home or a doctor's office?
So originally, this CDD was, according to what I've been told, the CDD was designed because there isn't a CRA that's in that area.
Do you know what a CRA is?
Yeah.
It's money that comes from ad valorem that's collected from the taxpayer that goes to, it's collecting money from one person and redistributing it to another. That's what it is. It doesn't magically appear. It comes out of the pocket of the taxpayer.
Yeah.
So call it an acronym all you want, throw letters and numbers behind it.
Yeah.
It's tax money that came from somebody who on average is making $48,000 a year with a 17.5% poverty level.
area.
Not in that area, but ad valorem is for everyone. So who suffers more greatly now? Think about that for one. You just brought up a wonderful point.
Yeah.
Somebody living over here, not in SweetBay, but somewhere else, is paying their ad valorem, and someone living in SweetBay is paying theirs. Well, half of that ad valorem, if you're living in SweetBay, is dedicated by the city through an agreement to go right back to that place.
Well, the way that it was explained is the money is going to be able to utilize anywhere in that ward.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just telling you what's
Why
been
then
told
do we
me.
need to give 45% of it back to that builder, to that developer?
Good question.
Why? The developer's going to know better than the city where to spend that money in the city?
Interesting.
I'm just asking the question. I'm just a
I'm
layman.
the wrong person to ask the question too.
Well, when you ask these questions, they refer you to a document that's that thick that was written by a couple of attorneys. So I'm just saying it's real simple to me.
Yeah.
You're collecting money assessed by a county tax appraiser, collected and given to the city, and the city turns right around and gives 45% of that back to a developer. Why do we need the developer involved? And if it's going to be spent in our own ward up there, why do we need developer involved in that? Why do they need the money? Let me tell you. Do the sharpest people in every different walk of life end up working in government, or do they end up working where they make the most money? Because if you're the sharpest and you're at the top of your class, do you end up working for the government, generally speaking, or do you end up working where you're going to be paid exceptionally well for your skills and your abilities?
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so I would submit and humbly to you that the attorneys and the folks that work for the company that is developing SweetBay have people that are sharper than razor blades drawing these things up for the people who agree to it later and give away nearly half the ad valorums that come from there. But I'm just a ditch digger. I don't know.
Okay.
Now, let's talk about living in the city, expenses of living in the city versus living in the county. So I pretty much have those memorized, but basically what you're going to read and understand there is that the city has found a way to tax our power bill, our communication bill, our gas bill, and it is 16% more expensive for the average person to live in the city limits than not in the city limits of Panama City. You live in the county, it's 16% cheaper.
Current millage rate, 4.99 mils. Utility tax, electricity and gas is 10%. Franchise fees, Gulf Power, 6%. GCEC, 6%. Teco Gas, 6%. Telecommunications tax, 5.2%. Fire assessment, 176.
That's for an empty lot.
$176.62 per parcel, and if the property is improved, $1.52 per $1,000 of the improvements determined.
$600 to $700 for an average house in Panama City.
Yeah, it's got the City of Panama City state seal or
City seal. Yeah. This was a response that when someone asked our city clerk and treasurer, Jan Smith, for the expenses, and she very clearly, very, very simply states what it costs to live here versus what it costs. Well, she didn't say versus anywhere else. She just says what it costs to live here. When you compare that to the non-taxed places to live in our area, if you're a potential home buyer, a home builder, and you're looking at the long-term and financing costs, and most people finance it over 30 years, not 15, it's 30 years. You roll up all your expenses into your mortgage. You do it. That's what everyone does. Because closing costs are so expensive, the out-of-pocket, it might take the average person, hardworking fella, more than a year to save up closing costs for buying a home. So all that's documented and verified, your income, your fundage for the purchase. So many things are wrapped up in the mortgage. And you have to think about a $10 or $15 or $100 fee now over 30 years amortized with interest is a huge number. Just like your home, let's talk round numbers. You spend $1,000 on a house, you get a loan for it at a certain percentage rate, and you amortize that over 30 years. You're not paying $1,000 for that house. You're paying $3,500 to $4,000 for that house in rough numbers. So anything you add to that initial $1,000 fee gets exponential. It grows exponentially, and you pay dearly for it. So the problem that builders are having is finding buyers that are qualified to not only get in the home, But now let's throw this transportation impact fee that they're kicking around right now. It's averaging $3,100 for somebody in the city limits down here proper, and about $4,500 for somebody that lives in, quote, Panama City North. And if you're going to build a dentist's office of, say, 3,000 square feet, that's $9,400. And if you're going to build a large thing like a Publix or a Kroger or something like that, it's about $500,000 in a transportation impact fee. Now, the city hired at the expense of $80,000 a company who, over the last 12 months, has done research and math and formulation of what it is the city can charge for these different things in the form of a transportation impact fee. And these are the numbers they came up with. A little over $3,000 for a residential home in Panama City, where, you know, what they call, I think, Panama City proper, and they call that the annexation recently up 231 to the east of 231. They call it Panama City North. $4,500 up there. Now, if you're barely making your mortgage, you know, these bean counters are looking at your income, what you can afford, and they don't want you to fail. They don't want to have to repossess a home. They don't want to have to go through the headache and heartache of all that. So they don't want to loan you something you can't afford. So they do their due diligence and they say, okay, for your income and your current debt and the expectation of you to be able to afford your mortgage, this is what you can afford. Now, if you don't have $3,something for this transportation impact fee, and you're going to have to finance that, you just ran that person out of that home. Because that $3,000 is not $3,000. When the bank looks at that and the underwriter looks at that, that's exponentially more than $3,000. And they have to qualify for that extra sum of money. They're qualifying for the total amount that they're going to have to pay back. They're not qualifying for the $100,000 home. They're qualifying for a loan for $100,000, which is way more than $100,000. And they're barely making it by the skin of their teeth already. And now you're going to throw some number at it like that. Boggles my mind that you need to hire an outside entity. Now, listen, I asked, how much did this cost at that second workshop? I asked our city manager, Jonathan Hayes, sir, how much did it cost you to find out this data? How much did you pay this company? And he said, well, about $80,000. And I didn't ask him, well, how much did you pay our city attorney to draw up this potential ordinance? How many hours did that involve at $400 an hour or whatever we're billed at? And how many hours did city personnel, including you, spend? And how many personnel at how many dollars an hour did it cost the city for all this research? How much is it costing to put on the first workshop, the second workshop, and the third one if there is one? It's going to be well over $80,000 that we've spent to be told how much you can charge for these different entities in a transportation impact fee. For these numbers to even be close to be what can be afforded by these different entities, you would have to cut them in less than half. You would have to make it realistic, you'd have to charge 25% of what these fees are. But the next question you would ask is, well, where's the money? What can you use the money for? It's easier to tell you by statute what you can't use the money for than what you can use the money for. And here's why I say that. When I go down, let's say I'm a very wealthy developer or builder, and I find a parcel of land that's within the city limits, or let's say up Panama City North, and I take a development order to the city and I show them what I'm going to build, and I show them the lots and the roads and the underground utilities, and I show them everything. Well, in that plan that I utter to them, they're going to be architecturally designed and engineered for roads, stormwater runoff, supply lines, power distribution, driveways, lighting. Everything is in the development order. And as a developer, I pay for all that, okay? So when the city says this transportation impact fee is for city roads, but it can't be used for maintenance or repair, well, that leaves the construction of a new road, right? I mean, if you can't use it for an existing road to repair the road or to maintain the road, well, what else can you use the money for? Well, it's to build a road. Well, when has the city built a road? I have old blueprints of Panama City before neighborhoods were neighborhoods, where the developer shows the city what he's going to do and the roads he's going to put in. Well, they become city roads post bonding and post inspection and post verification, but the developer paid for it. So a city road was not built by a city. It was built by someone and turned into a city road subsequent to development being completed. So you're going to collect a tremendous amount of money to go into an account. And we've been told at these workshops, and by Florida Statute 106, I did make notes at this meeting. Hang on.
By the way, let me say this while you're looking for that. I think you're running for the wrong office. I think you need to be running for county. Oof, man.
All right. Let's see here. By the way, if you want to see a bunch of government officials with deer in the headlights looks on their faces,
Like mine right now?
go attend one of these meetings where these people who are sitting on this side of the city officials are explaining to them the reality of the dire condition that builders and developers and the nation and the economy is in. And look at them with bewilderment and statements and factual things that they're pleading with. They tell them in these meetings, we're so thankful that you took the time.
Who is they?
Builders and developers
Yeah.
in our local area.
Yeah.
They're saying things like, we're so very thankful that you took this meeting and put on this. I want to stand up and say, why are you pleading with these people who are paid to work for you in your behalf and in the behalf of the widow's mite and the public trust? And you're thanking them, almost groveling in a sense to thank you so much for listening. It's not, don't grovel to these people to listen to you. You demand they listen to you. This is America. This is not some other place where these things do take place on the regular basis, and you're so very grateful for your government to listen to you. This is America, where you heck better listen to me. You work for me. I pay you salary. And we have elected officials that tell you whether you stay or not. If you're not being very approachable, and if you're not being very understanding to the way things are, and we're trying to scream at you and tell you that we cannot afford this, people cannot afford this, we don't know how you got these numbers, but they're not working, and you're going to stifle and shut down and choke out every development that's coming our way if you pass this. And I stood up and asked Jonathan Hayes for my little question. I said, Mr. Hayes, will you tell us here now today what words you will use when you report back to the commission on how this workshop went and what you've heard here today? Just go back and look at the archive. All right, statute number. Ordinance is 113. So the city ordinance that's up for adoption by the city commission is City Ordinance 113, and it's in rough draft form. And there's a copy available through the workshop archive.
Take your word for it. Take your word for it.
Yeah, but I think it's, I want to say Florida statute, not 106. It's not 106.
It's okay. You don't have to know that one. Let's we've explained the SweetBay and the Beach Drive, and
all right, let's talk about 1128 Chestnut.
oh Lord. Now this one,
We need parking. I am not someone that says we don't need parking. I'm not someone that says that property's not perfect for it. But that's not my stance on it at all. My observation on the entire situation with 1128 Chestnut is 2 points, 2 main points. And I've expressed already what our city clerk and treasurer has to say about our financial health.
yeah.
I submit that we're in that condition is because of statements, attitudes, and practices of what I'm about to describe to you, like on 1128 Chestnut. Okay, it's rampant. In the beginning, there were 4 appraisals that were added together and divided by 4.
Actually,
Okay. Okay, right behind Hunt's Oyster Bar is a city-owned public parking lot, right behind Hunt's Oyster Bar off Beck Avenue.
Okay, well, I'm looking at it on the
Yeah,
map.
and then the street behind that parking lot is called Chestnut. There's an old Saunders diesel shop there for years and years and years.
That's what I'm staring
That was an old diesel shop. There we go.
I was like, okay, that's not.
Yeah.
I was not planning on talking. I was not planning on talking about this with you. I was planning on talking about this with Doc, but I'm happy you brought it up so we can talk about it. I just sent over to you, Kendall. I sent over the appraisal, and then I sent over the supplemental phase 2 ECA report and the supplemental phase 2 summary by Ben Klabal.
Just for the environmental?
To environmental site.
Yeah, we're talking about
assessment.
environmental versus appraisals.
Well, yeah, no, I sent all of
Oh,
them
I'm so
over to him.
sorry.
I
Forgive
sent
me.
him.
No.
I sent him the appraisal.
Okay.
I sent him and then I sent him 2 reports. Yeah, which one do you want up first? You
Just
want
pull
the
up the
appraisal?
money part first. Yeah.
Appraisal?
Yeah.
Yeah, pull up the appraisal.
We'll just talk money and then we'll talk about potential contamination.
Okay, this is the appraisal report. That's,
So this is the first of 4 appraisals?
is this the first lot improvements? This was January 17th, 2025. So this was.
Oh, this is the latest then. This would be the latest appraisal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Well, I'm just
You
my
wanna
point.
give the history.
The point. Well, yeah, for everybody to
Okay,
cover.
yeah, go ahead.
You have to know the history. Yeah. So 2 years ago, well, it'll be 2 years ago in April, and this would be wonderful for Mayor Rohan to elaborate on. But basically, the 2 folks that bought that when it
Sam Wolf and
McGee and Wolf, yeah. When they bought that, it was 2 years ago. It was before the mayor became the mayor, and there was supposed to be a land swap, one lot for another lot.
what lot were they swapping?
A city-owned lot.
Oh, is that down there by the marina, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it was a oil depot, diesel depot, something like that. I can't remember.
And all this
Yeah.
stuff that we're talking about right
Yeah,
now
yeah.
is completely irrelevant to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
2 points I wanted to make about it.
Okay.
I want to make 2 very, very just common sense points.
Yeah.
I harp constantly on public trust in the widow's mite. Do you understand the parable of the widow's mite? Do you know the story in the New Testament of the widow's mite? And don't be embarrassed if you don't, because I'll be glad to elaborate for you
heard
real
this
quick.
before.
Okay, so very simple.
I'll let you.
But for,
I'll
yeah,
let you explain it. But I do.
And I'm paraphrasing. I cannot quote the scripture in the New Testament, but I will tell you what Christ had to say about the widow's mite. Okay, so the Lord Jesus Christ is in the temple with his apostles, not just disciples, but the chief apostles, the chief followers, those who are going to carry on the authority subsequent to his death, subsequent to his crucifixion, resurrection, and departure from our earth. He's in the temple, and they're witnessing the paying of tithes. Tithes is an amount of money that one should give to be in the correct Judaic law of the time. It was an offering. Temples weren't free. Neither was the burdens upon the tribe of Levi, who was in charge of hosting the temple and providing personnel for the temple and cleaning the temple and basically running the temple. So offerings were important. The world doesn't revolve without it. This is how it is. And they were witnessing a very wealthy local dignitary come into the temple, and he made a tremendous showing of him making his offering. And he had servants bring the offerings in chests, and it was enormous. And it was impressive to those that saw it, and he left. And a short while later, after all that was over with, a widow, and you got to understand, back in these times, you did not want to be a widow. It was very, very difficult to be a widow in those times. You just,
Yeah, no, I'm tracking.
you're tracking. Okay.
Yeah.
So anything that a widow had, if her husband was deceased, it was given by a son or charity. And if you had no sons, you were on your own. It was very tough to be a widow in those times in that location. And a mite is a denomination of money worth in today's money about a half a penny. If we had a half a penny, that's what a mite is. It's a very, very small denomination of money. So she came to give her offering, and it was a mite. She gave her offering, made no big showing, and left. And shortly thereafter, the Savior asked the apostles, he said, who gave more? The widow or the wealthy man? And they all said, well, the wealthy man, did you see those chests and those? And he explained to them, she gave. You're going to have to edit this part out. She gave all she had. He has rooms full of that. So when we talk about the public trust and the widow's mite, my heart feels for these people that I keep talking about. These 17.5% of the people living at or below the poverty line that are never discussed in these meetings. And the struggles of the blue-collar person that these people on this commission seem to act like don't even exist. Most of them are very wealthy. Most of them are very accomplished.
I don't think that should be edited out.
I'm asking you to.
I think it's good.
I didn't come here for this. I came here for facts. I didn't come here for emotions.
This right here, though, let me explain. Like, and listen, if you want me to edit it out, I'll edit it out. But what I'm saying is that the people know. People can go look up facts. People can see facts, but you want to see the heart behind the man that you're voting for. Why would you not want the public to see that there is a actual soul behind the person that's running for office? You're saying, I'm a man just like everybody else, and I have feelings, and I care about the people. This does not need to be edited out. But if you want it edited out, I will do it. Think about it. You can get back to me later.
So
you don't see this.
That's the story.
But this is what this right here. This is real. Seeing politicians that get up on a they call it a stage. We see a lot of acting.
Well,
and that there's to have a heart behind why you're doing something. A lot of people don't have a heart behind doing something like this.
I am not motivated by any other element in my being. It is not about anything other than I am them. I struggle. I try to make it.
This is the reason why you are running, and that's important,
Well,
So
back to the little facts here.
go ahead.
They take 4 appraisals. 2 of them are 2 years old. 2 of them were current. They added them together and divided by 4, and they based their offering and their discussions around that number. Now, have you bought real estate in your life? A home, anything?
Yeah.
Okay. You have a buyer and you have a seller. Well, the seller is the one bearing the burden of the actual value of the home, whether it can be financed, how much they want to pay for it, and it is common practice throughout that the buyer provide someone to appraise for his benefit and for his protection. You hire your own appraiser. You do not take the appraised value of the seller or the seller's appraiser. No one in the world does that. No one in this country does that. If your city and it's your policy and the city attorney tells you, quote, well, you may not like it, but it's the city's policy, then I would humbly submit the reason we're paying $200,000 more for a piece of property than we should be paying, and that is affecting the widow's mite, these people who they have nothing left at the end of the week. 17.5% poverty. Yes, there's people in this town that are super wealthy. Yes, there's people in this town that are middle class. But when you take an average and then you look at the fact, and I think from 2020 till now, 2025, I saw another statistic where it's not 17.5% anymore. It's gone up because the crushing economy and what we've experienced because of the ramifications of the policies at a national level have put more of a hurt on us than 17.5% poverty. I think it's at 18 to 19% poverty level now. We can look up a more current stat on that. But to frivolously think that it is wise or that you are zealously defending your client. Now, all attorneys everywhere, whether they be in the criminal law and civil law, corporate law, business law, all law, an attorney who has a client inherently functions for that client zealously. In other words, not in a mediocre way, not in a haphazard, not paying too much attention, but in a zealous manner. You are charged as the attorney because we got away from swords and catapults and we went to attorneys, right? And we've got a pretty good society because of that now. We live in peace mainly. We occasionally have to have an attorney, but when we hire one or when we have one assigned to us, we expect them to zealously defend our interests. How is it possible to be zealously defending the widow's mite and the citizen to give an extra $200,000 for something when you shouldn't?
So the property value, it assessed for $200,000 less than what it was sold for. So explain that because I'm a little confused.
I wish we could pull that up on the screen for you. Yeah.
You want me to pull up the appraisal on it?
So the sale price is documented. It's archived.
Yeah. Hold on, go up. Right here. Up. Yep. Go down. Up. Right there. $130,000.
Okay, let's see. So
That's the market value estimate is based on exposure time of approximately 4 to 6 months. So right now, as of January.
Well, we purchased it. It's been purchased.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was more than that, but we can take a look there.
This was from January 17th, 2025. Yeah, actually, sorry. That might have been the first one.
Yeah.
Keep scrolling down, bro. I'm sorry, man. I'm screwed. It looks like there's several more pages to this. That was 1 point. Okay, total market value estimate 1,170,000 or 130,000. Down. Yeah, I guess comparable price. So definition of market value, the most.
So there was two.
Price.
So when I said the way that this, when I said that,
what was that? Oh,
I can do
Jesus.
a search if you want.
What is the one at the very bottom? This is the certificate. Yeah.
What
anyway,
I said.
Go ahead.
Well, what I was when I started the discussion about 1120, I said in the beginning when they started on a number to negotiate with, the number was reached by taking the four exist. These are new appraisals. These aren't appraisals that were the four in the beginning because the city, subsequent to Mayor Rohan, just trying to say over and over again. Why are you doing that? They're number one, 2 of them are 2 years old, 2 of them are recent. They're provided by the seller. We're the buyer. Why are we taking the seller's 4 appraisals, adding them together and dividing by 4 and deciding that that's the number we're going to start with on our negotiations for this land? Doesn't make any sense. That was the 2 prongs that I was going to make about this property.
So nobody ever.
Yes, 2 separate. Jonathan Hayes hired 2 more appraisals.
I understand.
Yeah.
So nobody ever explained it on why they were doing it that way? Is there an
Yes,
explanation
our
for
city
it?
attorney said, this is the city of policy. This is the city's policy. You may not like it, but this is the city's policy. And we didn't like it. The public didn't like it. The public didn't like that you weren't zealously defending the interest of the taxpayer. That's the 2 points I wanted to make about the 1120 Chestnut were twofold. The first one was, if the mayor hadn't have been there making the ruckus that he was making about it, it would have sold we would have bought it a long time ago.
Well, it seemed like Jonathan Hayes could have purchased it before the mayor even took over, right?
I do not know the specifics of that
Pretty
statement.
sure-
I don't know.
Don't quote me on this. Actually, Jonathan Hayes is coming on next week. I got some questions. But I do believe, and I will clarify that with him, on the Chestnut issue, whether or not that was something that he could have purchased. Because I watched the meeting where this was talked about. And Brian Granger looked over at Jonathan Hayes and he said, "You could have purchased this property already, correct?" And he said, "Yeah, I could have purchased it already." Well, my question is on it, and my question to Jonathan Hayes is going to be, okay, if you could have purchased it before Doc Rowan was in office, or even without Doc Rowan's approval, why did you keep bringing it back to the commission? There had to have been a reason why he kept bringing it back, because Brian Granger in that meeting, he said on multiple occasions, he said he has brought this back to us multiple times because he wants to clarify, because it seems like you have a problem with it. If you have the permission to buy the property, why not buy it? And why did you feel like you had to keep bringing it back to the mayor's attention? That's the question I have.
I know there's
And
a monetary.
It's probably because I'm not going to say that on the mic, but I want to know why, and I'm going to ask why. So, because I'm curious about that.
Well, and the other prong that I have about it is just a pure common sense aspect of the fact that was a diesel mechanic shop that for years.
So the environmental.
Well, see,
issues.
I was very confused about the second environmental study that came out. The first environmental study stated, we recommend that you sink at least 2 monitoring wells here. That's a recommendation from a subject matter expert. I'm not a subject matter expert in ground contamination. I understand it. I encourage.
So, aren't they going to be putting? I'm sorry, I'm going to interject for 1 second. Is it a parking garage they're going to be putting there, or just a regular parking?
So let me stop you with that right there.
Sorry.
No, it's a good thing you brought it because I was going to get to that.
Okay.
Absolutely. My next 2 minutes, I was going to bring up the discrepancy of logic that the commission has used. They say that the minimal amount that's there, the fix is to pave it and leave it alone. And everybody was like, okay, great. Well, let me explain a little something to you about parking garages. If that's the plan for the future, they take pilings.
Yeah.
They have to go exceptionally deep and exceptionally large. You're going to be digging up that whole 1128 to put pilings in the ground.
Yeah.
And when that occurs, you're going to move that soil. And when you move that soil, you're going to disturb the soil. When the soil is disturbed, now what are you going to find? What are you going to release? So I'm just very curious to know, how do we go from a very suspect environmental 1 study with a recommendation of sinking 2 wells for groundwater monitoring to, oh, no, environmental 2 is good. We're good to go. We're just going to cap it and move on. It's nothing to see here. Well, I'm just a common man that doesn't make a bit of sense to me. And especially if your plan in the future is you're going to be digging down through there. And the statements have been made, quote, well, if environmental cleanup has to be done there, the city has access to grants for that only municipalities and government entities can get, but individuals cannot.
So I've got pull up the environmental studies. See why this takes hours.
Yeah. Matter of fact, can you break while I make a phone call
Let's
to
break
tell
real quick.
to
I
tell
gotta take a leak
okay.
anyway. So
You realize it's 7 o'clock? Back from commercial break, I guess is what you say?
Yeah.
Back from commercial break. We're basically discussing the fact that, from my understanding and from my following of the 1128 Chestnut property, the city did pay $200,000 more than they should have based on appraisals. Now, the last 2 appraisals that were obtained by the city,
I think this is what you're actually talking about.
through Jonathan Hayes's direction, there were 2 appraisals obtained by the city subsequent Two, what I said in the very beginning, that they took 4 appraisals offered by the seller, added them, divided them by 4, and started with a negotiation point. Then we progressed to where the city manager requested 2 appraisals. One was, if you could pull up the number of the because there were 2 numbers and they varied in amount.
We only had the one from January, which was
Well, no,
$1,130,000.
this is the where they put the recommendation in for not doing a garage and paving over.
Oh, yeah.
What Ed was saying, where it was the
Yeah.
second here. We then see that it looks like the purchase price changed to
$1,011,000. When was this? What's the date on this? 24. So it got raised then. So it went from $1,011,000 to $1,130,000. So this was in 2024. The number that we had pulled up before.
But I believe it sold. It didn't sell in May of 2024. It sold recently.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Okay,
So
yeah.
this was May 22nd of 2024, and the recommended amount was $1,011,000. The actual sale price and finalized price is what we pulled up from January of 2025, and it was $1,130,000. So it actually went up over about 118K.
So the main 2 points that I wanted to express about it was the way the entire negotiation and the entire format started. Our attorney for the city, in my opinion, did not zealously defend his client and look out for their best interests. And 2, when it's all said and done, eventually there will be contaminants that the city will have to deal with. There will be contaminants that the city will have to deal with. And to their statements that they uttered, no one solicited this from them. They volunteered the information that there are grants that exist for municipalities to clean up government-owned properties. I can promise you that in the inception of these grants, it was never designed for a city to buy a piece of property that was contaminated, knowing they could get a grant to clean it up, but therefore property previously owned or already owned by a city, hence discovering contamination and assisting the city in cleaning up their own property that's contaminated. I would say if we go back and research these grants, it's not for a city to be able to go out and have an advantage to buy a piece of property over someone who wouldn't have the money to clean it up subsequent to the purchase. Did I lose you?
No,
Okay.
I'm just listening.
All right.
That's Chestnut.
That's 1128 Chestnut.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your ward.
Let's talk about AAG, a local supplier in town. Jamie Gay, off Industrial Drive. In my efforts to meet the public and talk to folks who had recently had dealings with the city on bid processes, I was introduced to Mr. Jamie Gay of AAG. His company had a history with supplying industry with the types of pumps, valve, piping that are needed in moving large amounts of water around. It's not like buying a little bilge pump for a pond or a ditch. These are major pumps that we use in lift stations all through the city. As you know, the city gravity feeds to low points in the city their sewer water and effluents, and it gets collected in these low points, a lot of them around the bay, because water rolls downhill and we have neighborhoods next to bays. That's where gravity feed ends up, and then you pump it from that catch point long distances. Those pumps are strong and they're expensive. The city had a need and put out a invitation to bid on that website that we had discussed. He was aware of it and he put in a bid. His bid was entertained. Part of the bid process, because of the amount of money involved in it, was a $60,000 bid bond. What that basically means is you're guaranteeing some money that you're not wasting time of your own or the city's. This is a large amount of money, and if we're going to be dealing with you, we want you to have some skin in the game so that we can have a contract and negotiate. It's done in contracting all the time, not just with a municipality, but it's done all over the place, having a bid bond to make sure that everything is legit and up to par. He was invited in to speak with the city manager, the city attorney. I believe Clint Murphy was in this meeting, the city's chief engineer, and a few others to discuss his bid and the specifications involved in what he was going to supply the city. When he got into that meeting, it seemed like everything was going well until they got down to the specification about the type of pump, the manufacturer of pump. The bid specification that was distributed stated, and I cannot remember the name of this pump, but I'm going to call it the Acme pump for the sake of this discussion. Acme, okay?
Yeah.
And we're going to call another pump, we're going to call it the Reynolds pump. Well, the specification sheet stated an Acme pump or equivalent. He is not authorized to deal in Acme pumps because there is a distribution of sales from that company. And if you're the salesman for that area, you're the one that has to come through, and no one else. They don't share their territory. And so he's not that person. That person resides and is from Warrior, Alabama, who has the Acme pump distributorship area, region, geographical area, and Panama City lies in that geographical place. So when he defended himself in that meeting and stated, well, I don't have those pumps, I can't get those pumps, those are reserved for some other salesman in some other company, but I have the Reynolds pump, and the Reynolds pump is equivalent to that, and your bid process under the specification stated so, equivalent. And says that's where my bid lies, that's where my monetary amount lies, and that's where my offer to you lies. And he was told, well, we're only going to accept the Acme pump. He said, well, that's not what your bid states. And he was told, you are in jeopardy of losing your $60,000 bid bond. You need to withdraw your bid gracefully, and we will refund you your bid bond. So he did. And we bought pumps that were $594,000 more expensive than his pumps, because they had Ford on it instead of Chevy, or they had Toyota on it instead of Nissan, or they had Lexus on it versus Range Rover. In other words, there are folks out there in the world, engineers included, that have biases that state, oh, we're only going to do these pumps because these pumps. Well, I humbly suggest let's do this. Post-podcast, I'll call Jamie and I'll say, hey, can you give me a list of all these other municipalities from Mobile to Jacksonville that have bought these pumps from you, or other industries that have, and get names and numbers of these engineers that installed them and are maintaining them and using them, and let me get a list of phone numbers and call them and ask them how they like their equipment? I'd be very willing to do that. Once again, back to the widow's mite. These people do not zealously defend the widow's mite. And in my opinion, from what I understand and know in this regard, this is the tip of an iceberg. If I hadn't have gone out and dug this up, I wouldn't have found it. So my question is, how many Jamies are there that are told this? And how many other people who have had that done to them then spread the word, you don't want to do business with Panama City because they already have their decision made prior to publishing these things? It's just a question I'm asking. Anything we haven't hit on that you want me to discuss?
Well, it's more like, what do you want to discuss? You didn't hit on the marina yet.
Just going to school tonight.
Do we have another 3 hours?
I said like 4.
Well, we'll just cut it real short. I have served in the Florida Marine Patrol in many counties in the state, waterborne communities, marinas. Okay. For anyone to say a marina can't make money, Must be employed by the city.
A marina can make money. I think the issue with our marina before, I don't know what the plan was after, was the subsidy, right? The fact that this is just how I look at it. The taxpayer is paying for that marina. Before, you'd have people that lived in Alabama, Georgia, Lynn Haven, freaking Panama City Beach, 30A. And they had a boat slip with us and they were only paying, what, $70, $80 a month? And they were getting this amazing deal to be able to have a boat slip, but it was paid for by the taxpayer. So
Subsidized, yeah.
Yeah. So in my opinion, you shouldn't be able to have a slip there unless you live in Panama City.
So the rules of engagement there were not beneficial to the widow's mite.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that my whole life because that's important to me, because we need to understand that those who are in those conditions are just as much a part of us as any other group. And I am not an advocate for taking away excessively from anyone and giving to anyone excessively. That's not what my point here. My point here is this. There's a whole lot more folks in this town not in the classification of how things are going than are. Mm-hmm. And the benefit of that in extending. So I've seen the plans. We're going to divide our marina in half now.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have half of the marina for a certain size vessel and their own fuel dock, and the other half of the marina for another size vessel and their own fuel dock. Now, it does make sense to me to separate fuel docks. I think 2 fuel docks is a fine idea. But it was the Panama City Marina, and if we're going to have a Panama City Marina that's going to reflect the average Panama Cityite, then let's do that. And if we're not going to have a marina that's going to reflect the city of Panama City, then I guess we're going to keep on with these drawings.
Yeah, the marina should strike a little bit more home with you because that's in your ward.
Oh, yeah. I've been going to that marina since 1982.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kept a patrol boat in that marina. All my friends that worked in this zone, in this Panama City district, kept a boat there at one time or another.
Yeah.
I'm exceptionally familiar with its history and its the love that the people have for it, and the fact it's floundered for 6 years when it could have been up and running. I would estimate 4 years ago it could have been up and running if we would have taken what was offered to us in the beginning.
Well, so let me give you the arguments there, and so you can
I'll listen to
can
them.
rebuttal it.
Okay.
Some of it had to do with the FEMA money was going to go to us, but it had to be built back to the specifications that it was in the 1960s.
Okay, well, as is. All right, so repairs had been done since the 60s and so on and so forth. However, let me ask you, which is better, what we have now and what it's going to take to get anything, and what we would have had if we'd have done the deal? It's just a simple question.
I think that we were worried about a clawback. That was the whole issue, which is, FEMA comes in and they take a look at it and they're like, well, you didn't build it back to the same specifications. Like you used Philips light bulbs instead of freaking Haiti, or you used, or I mean, it could be anything. It wasn't built back to the exact specifications. So that's the argument that's being put on the table, where it's like, we were worried about a clawback, which could potentially put the city into even bigger problems financially. That's the argument.
Okay.
You don't have anything to say on that one?
That's...
You could say that that's a bullshit answer, but I'm saying that's the answer that I have been given.
Okay, well, we were offered from the federal government an opportunity to have our marina back 4 years ago. If we would have been wanting to change anything, we could have changed it subsequent to having it built back by that money. Mm-hmm. We could have increased structure on the marina. could have changed out fasteners. We could have done whatever we wanted once it was built back to that. But if you're being wise and you're trying to protect the widow's mite, well, where are we now? We don't have a marina. And if it was managed properly, it could be in the black, not in the red. It could have a positive cash flow. It doesn't have to be huge. Just like building permits collected by entities should not be a moneymaker. Florida law says it's to cover the cost of the permit, the inspecting, and so forth. And it is not to be in excess of that. Miami currently is being sued for $11.7 million.
It's kind of like the joke, man, because we just had lunch at history class the weekend before last, and Kendall and I walked down there with my kids, and we got down there, and Kendall looked around. First thing that came out of his mouth, "What makes a marina again?"
Not this.
And it was like,
Yeah.
boats.
Not a big vacant.
What is
pond.
do you know what the plan is for it right now?
I have seen versions that are being drawn that have yet to be uttered to the folks that are doing the work. There's been a lack of communications, and it was even mentioned by William Harrison that it hasn't been uttered to them. This is a few weeks ago or 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. Time is getting away from me, but there are plans being done on this hand over here in renderings, and they're not even being run by the folks that are going to be doing the work on this hand over here, yet being circulated by the city to the public when the person doing the work hasn't even had a chance to give input to it. So there's a breakdown right there, number one. Number two, I've been in amphitheaters in Florida in the heat, and it is terrible. Concrete acts as an oven when it absorbs the sun rays all day long. And these images that people have in their mind is a visual images. They are visual images, and you're not understanding the physical strain that's going to be on your body trying to sit on something that's over your body heat. Even that after the sun goes down, concrete can maintain a temperature well over 100 degrees even after the sun goes. When you touch concrete and it feels warm to you, it feels warm to you because it's above 98.6 degrees on average. It's 100, 105, 110, whatever it may be, and feels warm to the touch because it's hotter than you are. That takes until 9, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night sometimes to give off that heat energy. So we're going to have a concrete amphitheater that's going to soak up heat all day long and have a show that people are going to attend in an amphitheater. Their kids aren't going to be able to stand it. Folks with any types of health conditions aren't going to be able to withstand it. People who are healthy are going to be uncomfortable and probably go to one, maybe two, and then realize, I'm sweating myself to death at these things. So an amphitheater would be great in a climate that would not create an oven for you to sit on in the evening. That is a marina. That is a boat ramp.
The Hollywood Hills.
And that's a nice image. And that would be wonderful if that was possible. But do you know where Red Rocks is located?
Colorado, bro.
Do you know it's at the foothills of the what?
The Rockies.
and what is the dew point generally there? What is the humidity and what is the temperature? Yeah, nothing like we have at sea level in Panama City, Florida. It's completely different environment. I've been there. It's gorgeous, and it's nothing like this. And it's nothing like this. So it's a marina. It needs to be for boat ramps. We need much more parking for our boats and trailers. If you have ever been there with a boat and trailer and you've tried to navigate the afternoon trying to retrieve your truck or your car and your trailer and come back down there to pick up your boat. Now look, we have a big parking lot now. Let's use it for what it is. It's a marina parking lot. If you want to have greenery, great. You want to have medians and trees and bushes and water them and beautify it, wonderful. Natural plants, great. Terraces in the medians, all that, wonderful. But it's a parking lot for boats, for boat trailers and vehicles that have launched at that ramp. That's what it needs to be used for. And that's what everyone who owns a boat wants it used for. But when you narrow the streets downtown and you put a roundabout down there that makes it difficult for a fire truck to get around, and you deter trailering anything down through that part of town because it's so narrow and it's so hard to get around, you've already done a large part of what we discussed earlier with traffic engineering, and you've made it less desirable to go there let's not make it any less desirable to go there and use it for what it's for, which is a boat ramp.
And we pretty much hit on all the major topics.
I'm looking very much forward to your subsequent podcast with others who can explain some of these things to a layman like myself who's having a very difficult time comprehending why these actions have been taken.
So I'm going to encourage the powers that be to listen to this podcast, and if they have any rebuttals, they can always come back on and explain themselves. And
correct me. This is stuff I've gathered by being an average citizen, digging up all I can dig. I have had people that know a lot more than me explain a lot of this to me. I'm not a subject matter on the type of financing that's going on. Yeah.
Like
I'm an
Donald
average
Trump.
citizen that wants to see our government return to listening to the citizens. And I completely believe it has not gone on. We are not listening to our citizens. We're not.
What makes our president smart, he is not knowledgeable on half the stuff that comes out of his mouth because he knows who to hire to give him the information. So I think that it doesn't matter how you got the info, if the info is accurate. And keep in mind, and I will let the listeners know, I was actually dreading this interview a little bit because the things that I had seen at some of the commission meetings, there's a lot of dirt that is thrown around without facts. And you came here with facts. I didn't hear you had some opinions that were in there. You stressed that it was an opinion based, but everything that you came, we pulled up all the facts. I mean, if someone has anything to say, they
went to work today.
Yeah. And we actually need more people that come on that are going to do what you did. Hey, this is what I got. Hey, let's pull it up on the screen. Because right now, we've had some, and most people. So let me say this too, though, and I think we can agree on this. Maybe. I don't believe that the people that are running right now, that anybody has any motives to destroy the city. I think everybody has a different opinion on how things should work. I think that everybody that has come on here, they have families, they have loved ones that live here in the city, and I do believe that everybody wants to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, before an election, you either have facts or fiction. And if you don't have anything to back up with what you're saying, and you're just running your mouth, which we see a lot at some of these meetings, not just in Panama City, but see it a lot. In the surrounding areas where it's like we come and we spout off and we want to point fingers, but you don't need to point fingers until you're able to come out with the raw data. And you definitely came here with raw data. So, and I appreciate you doing that, because a lot of times I have people that show up that do these podcasts and they're just kind of like, what do you want to talk about? And it's like, you're running for office. What you tell me, dude. That camera right there. Hey, people that watch that. I think we're up to about 32,000 views a month right now. That's over 1,000 views a day on average. Brother, like, people are watching you, whether or not.
There's some other numbers. So it's going up.
Are we higher? Yeah. So, the thing about it is that, if you sit here and you're going to lie on camera, you sit here and you give an opinion-based thing, there's people that are watching this and they're going to go, our follower count doesn't show our viewer count, and which is hilarious to me, because it's the fact that people actually are watching this stuff, man. And I believe that your heart is in the right place. I believe that you're running because you want to make a difference. And I also, if I have another person that comes to me and they say, oh, it's all smoke and mirrors, I'm going to point them straight to this podcast. I'm going to go, you tell me on there what's fiction. Because you didn't come on here and go, oh, well, this person is doing this and this person's doing that, and there's these backroom deals. You came here with, this is what's going on. This looks weird. This doesn't look right.
I want the public zealously defended and looked over. And I do not see that. They're
We
not.
need more people that run for office like you. So
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. My first one, my first rodeo. I appreciate
Well,
you
you
being kind to
did.
me.
You did. You did really good.